And so that's why we need to lower the age of consent.
Quite the start here, chat. Quite the start here. Late and gay? Absolutely not. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Under the Tea. Legal Mindset said that he'll be here shortly. Obviously, you know, everybody has lives. And so we're just going to do some pre-stream warm-up stuff while we're waiting. How are you guys doing today? We were talking about the new manga, or is it an anime? I think it was a manga first.
It's a manga that got turned into an anime.
It was a manga in 2018.
Oh, there he is.
Oh,
how's
hello.
it going?
Morning.
Here, let me I need to set things up here. Let me switch to the 4-way, and then I have
would you like to warn people ahead of time? We already started stream, so people can hear you.
Yes.
That's perfectly fine, thank you.
Window capture.
I'm always ready.
There we go.
Hope you're having a good day.
I'm having a great day. Just waking up. Had some late night coverage, so you know, maybe slept in a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is totally fair.
That was the Disney coverage, right?
The Disney coverage, yeah, that got me staying up. I told people I was going to jump on that as soon as it dropped, so I keep my word on that.
No, yeah, for sure.
What's the Disney thing? I didn't hear about this one.
The Disney thing is you're not black enough to work at Disney. There were tapes that came out. There were tapes that came out that essentially said that Disney intentionally and explicitly does not hire certain people because of race, gender, right, including how you might appear as your race. So they said, look, they're not hiring white men, and even if you're black, if you're light-skinned or, you know, mixed, you know, and you don't seem black enough, you know, you will not be hired by Disney, right?
Wow.
Period, right? And also that they're intentionally not promoting people. They're giving people, they're passing people over for bonuses, for management roles, you know, for like going up in the organization. This is all stuff that this was said by a lawyer within the corporation, which is like crazy. Like, it was nuts. And I'm like, this guy is like admitting to intentional discrimination, and it was absolutely wild. This is stuff that was released by O'Keefe. What he does is, his model is he typically gets girls to go on dates with guys, and they just spill their guts on these dates. About like all their dirty dealings. So like, you know, a couple of Hinge dates, 2 separate girls on Hinge dates with this guy, got pretty much all the info from him.
That's insane. And okay, thinking about this, hypothetically, if I ever got hired by Disney, because, you know, I'm half Mexican, but I also have alopecia, so I am like pale as an Aryan child. Would I be able to get away with suing for discrimination based off of a medical issue?
Yeah, sure, absolutely, because I mean, that's another thing too. That's a disability, right? So what if you were like super pale because you were like had albinism or whatever the hell it is, right? You know, people, you cannot go out there and discriminate. I think it's basic. I think we all know, like, in America, you can't discriminate against people based on skin color.
You know, that's important.
It's pretty fucking basic. Like, it's not rocket science. It doesn't take a lawyer. You don't have to be a lawyer and a fancy lawyer to figure that out in a nice suit. You know, it's just common sense. And, you know, frankly, like, is that the world people want to live in, where people are treated like that? You know, how about we're not hiring you because you're not good, or, you know, we're not hiring you because you didn't do your job right, or you didn't read these lines right, right? You know, not hey, you're not. No, you know, and you're exactly right. Look, I grew up in Miami, and there's a lot of very, very light-skinned Latinos, right, and Latinos, right? So what does that say about your background? Do you have to look like a stereotypical Mexican in order to like play a Mexican role? Like, unless you walk up and with a sombrero and a tortilla, riding on a donkey, is that what they want? Which is, by the way, more racist than just saying, hey, look, let's show people of all different types, and let's show people that are, let's have the quarter black guy in there who still is black, just to show, hey, there's a diversity of people that, can come from these different backgrounds, and they may not all look like you think. So maybe, when we approach people, we shouldn't make assumptions about them, and we should let them talk and, get their story out, because they might be a different person than we thought, right? I think that's a better world than saying, hey, that person is, look at this shade, they're this shade, so therefore they're this person, and also that makes them a bad person, right? And that's not a world that I want to live in, and I think most of us would want to live in.
Absolutely not.
So I have like a semi-related question, because I've always wondered this, but I've never actually known where to even look for it. What's the legal landscape like for being able to discriminate for hiring for jobs that require like a person of a certain race? Things like movies,
modeling, right?
Yeah. I've always wondered what's the actual landscape for that.
You can, right? There's certain things where if it's an aesthetic role where like you're looking for a person that fits a specific role, you can post and say, hey look, this role is we're casting a period piece about I don't know, let's just make up a country, Brazil, right? And we want people that look Brazilian, or Brazil's very, multi-ethnic. So let's say maybe Saudi Arabia or Iran, right? We want people who look Iranian. So you can do that for a specific role, but it should be posted that way clearly. The problem is Disney is not posting these roles that way, right? So when they're put out to agents, they're not saying we want somebody who's Iranian because we're doing an Iranian period piece. They're saying, oh well, we want somebody for this role, right? We're casting a hero, right? And we want a hero character, right? They're not saying this person is XYZ, right? And these are the criteria. And they're saying that they're disqualifying these people specifically for race purposes, or other purposes, right? But mostly for race. They do talk a little bit about sexual orientation, but actually what ends up getting caught here is that I guess if you're a gay white man, right, you would also be removed as well, because their concern is more about the white man part than the orientation.
The sexuality.
Part. Right. The sexuality part is subordinated to the other two. But yes, if you had a specific role, there's ways to do that. That's proper, and that's fine, right? If you're casting a particular ad and you need a very tall woman, right? That's fine. You're allowed to do that. That's modeling, right? That's very specific. But that's not what we have with Disney, right? No. Disney has broad race quotas. I pulled it up earlier, but they actually have put out this rubric, and this was something that was publicized months ago. That's like a race quota, saying we need 50% of actors to come from these specific groups. We need 50% of the characters to be of these groups, 50% of the writers, 50% of the producers, right? Yeah. That's on its face illegal. You cannot have a race quota, right? Which, I mean, it's just, I thought these things were common sense, but it's not. It's not for these folks. They're already they have a class action against them currently, right? So they've got a class action that's been filed for this stuff already, which is only going to get, it's only going to make that case stronger. And then they've got, of course, the Gina Carano lawsuit, which is not directly on point, but it may help with like discovery and what she gets to dig into, which is not good for them and would incentivize them even more strongly to settle.
Yeah.
And I got two things in relation to the Disney thing. One, James O'Keefe. I recognize that name. Project Veritas, right?
Yes. Formerly.
Yes.
It's not his anymore.
Fucking company, which is insane that the board were able to vote him off.
Yes.
And
kind of
what
insane.
was the other one? Gina Carano. I've been following her case for a while, and I really hope she can get something out of it, because like, I know California is an at-will state, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
And being fired for just wrong thing because she said something on Twitter still feels insane because yes, it's an at-will state, but it's just like, you know, different opinion and, you know, First Amendment right to say whatever she wants, and it's not like she was disparaging anybody either.
Well,
So
I think
like,
you could clarify this for me because I also live in an at-will state. And it is my understanding that at-will doesn't necessarily mean they can fire you for any reason, just they can fire you without reason.
Correct. I mean, you couldn't fire someone, once again, you still can't fire someone because they're black, right? Like, there's certain reasons why you can't fire somebody, like just generally, or hire it's like hire, fire, promote, right? You can't do those sort of things. Now, for Gina Carano, her chief allegations are she was fired for her political posts because her posts were political. Now, that normally is actually permitted in most states, but not California, because California passed a specific statute that says you can't fire people for political beliefs. Now, they passed that, and to be very clear, they passed that because during the Summer of Love, right, during the pandemic, where there were all those protests, they didn't want people that were going to protest for BLM to be fired. But because statutes, which are the laws that are recorded and passed by the state, because they have to be neutral, right? They have to be politically neutral. It says you can't be fired for political beliefs. It doesn't just say you can't be fired for following BLM, right? The law can't say that. That's one specific group. It can't favor one over the other. It can't favor left over right. It can just favor, you know, just has to be neutral. So it says you can't be fired for political beliefs. So this statute has been used to protect people from political beliefs when it's the, you know, evil right-wing company against the left-wing protester. But now you have it the other way, where it's the left-wing company against the right-wing protester, and that's what caused a lot of the oh my god, because it's such a rare incident. It rarely ever happens in California where it's used that way, right? Because, you know, frankly, these things don't happen, and a lot of times if it's a maybe somebody that was fired for being politically conservative, they just would go about their way and go about their day and find another job, right? But in this very specific case, what you had is other people at that company, like Pedro Pascal and Mark Hamill, who posted extraordinarily offensive tweets of the exact same nature, and they weren't fired, right? Their contracts were not terminated, right? So that's Gina's lawsuit. So she has a case under political discrimination, also ironically under sexual discrimination, because these guys, right, were not fired. They were men, and she's a woman and was fired. So it's very interesting.
Is she claiming that in it?
Excuse me?
Is she claiming that in part of her lawsuit?
Yeah, because remember, a lawsuit is like taking spaghetti and like throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
The sex discrimination is a weaker one. It's kind of like laughing. It's like, honestly, you're laughing. I'm laughing about the sexual one too. It is kind of the weaker one.
I hope it sticks.
But it might stick, and you never know what the judge is persuaded by. So the better argument, the better case is the case on the political argument. Getting into the sexual side is just like laughable, but it's still sort of is a point there that there have been guys that engaged in that exact same pose. They didn't get banned.
I can see the headline now. California is sexist towards women, chooses males over females tweets. That's great.
It's
but
like
that's what Disney did, though.
That's what they did. That's what they did.
It's like Disney looks bad in so many situations right now, because say if for some reason Gina Carano loses this and, like, you know, she gets nothing.
Yes.
Disney in California will be seen as, we will discriminate against you if you show any type of political leanings to the right.
Yes.
So they will lose so many sponsors, so many people investing in their company.
More than they already have.
They've lost some, but the thing is they would lose even more, I think, because investors would continue to lose confidence in them. And, you know, beyond that, they would also be dealt a blow at a time when they're supposed to be recovering generally with with folks on the right-hand side, because remember they lost that lawsuit against DeSantis. That's one of the things I covered pretty extensively. I just hammered that thing. They lost it. They and it was exactly how I predicted. They lost it. They had to settle because they couldn't build anything in Florida. They couldn't build nothing until that lawsuit was over. So they had to settle it, right? So, and now by the way, they said, oh, we're not giving money to Republicans. They're giving money to Republicans again in Florida. So
They kind of have to now.
They have to now, right? So like all of this, they've had to backtrack on. So them going and losing the progress they made, right, would not be good for them. So in my mind, the best thing for them is to settle every single outstanding lawsuit they can, pay all the money, and just move on, and stop doing this stuff publicly. Right now, we know a lot of companies will do illegal stuff privately, right? They will go out there and they'll do stuff privately. We all know this. It happens.
We're familiar.
It happens. And yeah, we're familiar. Nisha Sanji. You can do a lot of stuff and get away with a lot of stuff without getting caught, right? And I can say this as an in-house counsel representing corporations. There's a lot of times where companies are doing shit that's illegal, and I'm like, guys, we shouldn't be doing this. Can we quickly stop doing this as quickly as possible? And they're like, okay, but like, what if we do it till the end of the month? I'm like, I have to tell you it's illegal, but are we going to get caught? Probably not, right? But like, but at the same time, let's stop doing this as soon as possible, please. Like, let's stop doing X, And it can be something mundane, like, for example, it might be something like language we have in an ad that that is not the best language to have in an ad, right? Versus like a mosquito just landed.
Oh gosh, that's terrifying.
But anyways, it might be something like that, or it could be something like even like the amount you charge for a tax or something else like that, and you're charging the wrong amount. These sort of things can happen, mistakes can happen, and as long as you fix them in good faith, it's typically all right. Most laws, and there's so many, when you're running a business in America, there's so many laws and regulations, you're probably breaking one at some point, right? But the thing about discrimination is it's very basic. It's a concept, it's a belief, and to me, it's really sad that we've gone into an era where it's okay to discriminate against certain people. It should be not okay to discriminate against everybody. Let's just treat everybody equally. Let's treat everybody with respect. And I think that's the world I want to live in, and that's the world that the law in America protects.
Yes.
Right? Not other countries, by the way. Other countries do allow very active discrimination, right? But in America, that is not permissible.
No.
Yeah.
Praise Jesus for that.
Yes.
I've been seeing so many, like, ever since the whole Sweet Baby thing came out. There's so many gaming companies, Sweet Baby itself, and like companies from like, large corporations to indies, where they have explicitly said, hey, we are going to hire only these types of people. White people, no, we will purposely not hire you, or we'll let you on, but then somehow fire you. It's like there's going to be so many small lawsuits coming out of this. It's going to be insane.
I'm waiting for
it.
And
they now have proof, right? They now have actual proof, so they can say, hey, look, we've got this, we've got you on candid camera here, with this. So yeah, it's not good. It's not good for them.
No, well, here's the big thing about the internet that I love. Nothing goes away forever. Everything is documented somewhere, and I absolutely love it. Yes. When all of this stuff started coming out, when Sweet Baby started coming out, everybody looked at the internet and said, wait a minute, we recognize a lot of these people. They're the problem from the first Gamergate. Oh my gosh, we already know what to expect. And it's just funny. It's like,
yeah, it happens in the VTuber world and the non-VTuber world. But your history ends up catching up with you, right? If you've got shit out there, it's going to come out. So it's better, in my mind. A lot of people try to like dodge it or ignore it. It's much better to acknowledge it, and if you made a mistake, just admit you made a mistake, right? And then move on, right? Just be like, yep, that was me. I fucked up. Moving on.
I agree. I agree.
I think that tends to work out better, because if you're dishonest and if you are lying about it, it's going to come out. People are going to figure out your past, and they're going to figure out what you're doing and what your grift is. And, you know, it's just better off to acknowledge it and go on. And these people for the Sweet Baby stuff, they've got some pretty nasty histories, and they've got, you know, and they're people that are involved in some nasty stuff. Now, I did think it was hilarious that Alyssa Mercanti, Miss Fight Me Physically, ended up blocking everybody, including Vera Dark, who like threatened, who like didn't threaten, was like, I'll take your fight.
I'll challenge
I'm
you.
a woman and I'll take your fight thing. And she backed down on that immediately. The girl's 5'1". Like, I don't know what she thinks she is. She thinks she's Mike Tyson or something like that. You know, it's hilarious. But a bunch of soy boys were behind her, like, yes, queen, yes, you fight them all, yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I feel like Anissa Joma would be able to fight her properly. I know she does boxing of some kind, so maybe they would. Although maybe Anissa would agree with her. I don't know. But no, Alyssa. I don't know what was going on with Alyssa.
She's nuts. I mean, but Kotaku, look, what relevance does Kotaku have anymore? What are they doing that's helping gamers?
Well,
I thought they were shutting down.
They almost shut down. I believe there was also a time where they at the end were like, look, we're getting bad. The only thing that makes money or does well is gaming guides. We need to go back to doing gaming guides. And they literally revolted. They said, stop doing political stuff, stop doing all this stuff. Go to just focus on games, do gaming.
Mm-hmm.
All the staff revolted because they're all heavily politicized,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
So they don't give a shit about games. Right? It's sad. I mean, there's so many good people out there. Look at all the YouTubers that cover gaming, that love gaming. Right? And you can't get a group of a couple of writers, a couple of people that actually game and love gaming and don't hate gamers, right? It's crazy that these places are staffed by people that actually hate the thing that they're covering. It's wild, really, and hate the people that play the games, you know, in the thing they're covering, right? It's just this weird, bizarro world. And this isn't just in the gaming industry; it's in a lot of other industries where you have people that are covering stuff that don't like the stuff.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where and I experience this a lot with other jobs. Like in my current job right now, I see a bunch of people that are just doing the job to do the job. They don't care. They don't have passion for the company. They're just there to collect a paycheck. So I feel like for a lot of these people, Kotaku, it's not because they're not there for the passion. They're there to get a paycheck. And I'm pretty sure Kotaku gives them a lot of money, which they don't deserve, in my opinion, because they don't know what they're doing.
Well, a lot of people would do that for free, and a lot of people are doing a better job for free
on YouTube,
right?
Yeah,
on YouTube or Twitch or whatever else. I mean, you know, Rumble, whatever else they are, Twitter, right? I mean, I have a good friend learning the law. You know, he's in Argentina, and his tweets are better than all of Kotaku, right? They're more informative on gaming than all of Kotaku and what's going on in gaming, right? So, I mean, if I just follow a couple people on Twitter, that generates more value than all of in Twitter, a user on Twitter is free. You sign up for free.
Yeah.
So you're running a company here where you're paying people salaries that aren't even accomplishing what people are doing for free. That's bad.
Well, I want to know when the money's actually going to run out, because I know that they're running on something, and I want to know when it runs out. They're going to be so sad.
Aren't they being funded by BlackRock though, for the most part?
Yes.
Yeah.
And also these other companies, and the thing is, what people don't realize is corporate debt, and this is actually very similar to government debt, because I used to represent Florida, all these little special districts that took out these bonds.
Yeah.
Right? They can get money for nothing. I mean, they can get money for like 1%, 2% interest. Which, can you imagine that, getting a loan for 1%, 2% interest? And because the thing is, at a certain point. Yeah, exactly. It's like that's fantastic. I mean, it's less than inflation. You could go and take that money and just invest it in just anything, and you're going to make more than 1%. So then you're incentivized to get on the hamster wheel of borrowing and just draw out this money. And especially during the pandemic, money was very, very cheap, very, very easy. Now, yes, the interest rates have gone up. The amount they can borrow has cost a little bit more, but these companies were given a lot of free money. There's a lot of money coming out there when the money printer went burst, so they were able to stay afloat. A lot of companies were able to stay afloat because of that, right? So that, I think, got them decently far, but there's a point at which the profitability does come up, right? I mean, there's a point at which that does come due and you can't borrow anymore, right? There's a point at which you're fully leveraged, right? Now, are they there yet? No. But like, I mean, are these game journalists generally heading that way? Yes. And more than that, it's about the people that are looking at this, looking at these sites. I mean, they're not getting the viewership, right? And all of these sites, you know, I looked at PC Gamer, which was backing up exactly the same thing Kotaku had. And if you look at the articles, the things they're writing, they're all writing the same article, right? All of these folks in these gaming journals are writing the same articles, which is why they're dying. And I know others have covered this, like I've seen Aspen have a similar take and stuff like that, but it's absolutely true. That these are just little clones and they're all spouting the same message. And it's the same reason why mainstream media is kind of dying out, because they do the exact same thing. And if it's all apples and there's no oranges, well then, you know, why do they need to have a bunch of different companies saying the same shit? I agree. You know, it just
I agree. It's an eventual thing, but for now we're kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, and look, by the way, I just want to say something real quick, because I know a lot of people, they give me shit, they're like, oh, Andrew, you're super on the right. I fully believe in the ability of everybody to give out their opinions, even if they're, I don't care if you're out there as a North Korea stan. In fact, I might think that's actually hilarious, right? I don't care if you're politically whatever. You can be a flag waving tanky communist. That's fine. You have an opinion that is valid to get out there. But when I look at a business, I have to say, okay, is this a viable business strategy? And if it's just something that's losing, I mean, the answer is objectively no, right? It happens to be tied to oftentimes politicization, but that could be on the right too. So for example, if somebody was making an anti-anime, and anime is the devil, you know, business, and that's their business model, I would say equally that that's a shit business model. Right, you know, so both sides there can hit equally. It just so happens that these guys typically they're over here, right? Yeah. So that's
more
just
often than not
the situation.
More often than not, yeah. It's kind of. I'll be honest with you, that's kind of weird, because like you look at the right and they're really trying to capture people, and it's just like you're not going to do that by telling them that anime is sin. Because the people on the left
like
are doing
Matt
that
Walsh
too.
Guys, the Matt Walsh people who are like anime and video games are evil, right? And that turned me off when I was a kid. That turned me off to listening to anybody with that sort of thing. People talking about like video games being evil. And I love video games. I've played video games since I was a kid. You know, so when you're telling me it's the devil, and I was also going to church back then when I was younger, so I was like, I'm not going to listen to somebody who's telling me that I have a dissonance here between like my personal belief and playing video games, right? So I think that was a big thing. And by the way, we see that now. This is with usually some internet weirdos, but we see that with VTubing, right? You know, where people are like, oh, well, all VTubing is evil and condemnable, right? And that is equally insane, right? Oh, yeah. So I love all these people kind of together. And once again, I condemn it all. Like, I condemn these people, you know, writ large, because I think they're making the mistake of assuming all X is Y, and that's a logical mistake.
No, I agree. Yeah. I do see that, especially when it comes to VTubers, everybody likes to lump them together, especially when it comes to the lolly question, and it's just like, bro, you can't generalize everything. Bro. You can't. It's not how it works.
And it shows they're tourists. It shows they don't know that within the whole VTubing community, yes, that's an internal debate, right? And the point of the matter is that like VTubing has the exact same splits as reality, right? There are good people and bad people in reality. There are good VTubers and bad VTubers in reality. There are people that work for themselves, indies, right? And there are people that work for corporations, the corpos, right? You know, like that's akin to reality. But the people that come in and criticize, they're people that literally don't watch VTubers, whatever. They just come in for 2 seconds, they see something, and then they generalize that to all VTubers, which just shows, look, your opinion is worthless. You don't know what you're talking about. And if you actually came in and had a nuanced take, like, hey, this person is fucking up here, you might actually get something done, like in the Kenji situation, which I covered. No, and I bring this up because it's actually a positive in the end. Yeah. Like, I remember covering that, and Kenji freaking reached out to me and was like, hey, dude, I'm sorry about this and that, you know, I've patched this up, you know. And I was like, wow, okay, like, there's something where there was cause and effect. There was, you know, people going out and showing this, and then somebody corrected their behavior. You know, and I'm like, that's more what you do. You call out individuals that act bad, and whether it's an instance of acting bad or a pattern of bad behavior, right? And you can affect change, real change, positive change, and that's what I tend to focus on, because I think that's actually what fucking works.
No, I agree.
Like for example, saying all corporations are bad. Well, that's not going to get you anything. But when I covered Disney and I specifically focused on Disney, I was able to hammer on issues more specifically. It's just a matter of focusing on what works versus what doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree. What was...
and it's like,
oh, go ahead.
To, like, when people come into the VTuber space and they're like, all VTubers are X or all VTubers are Y, it's the exact same thing with, like, political leanings, where a lot of people, like, say that all VTubers, every single one of them, are all far lefties, and, like,
Super woke.
This is how
I don't understand
this is
that.
actually how I met Arch, because I was playing Stellar Blade and he just pops into my stream, and then, like, I'm just yapping about some random shit. I think it was because I was talking about, men can have their own spaces, women don't have to invade everything.
Misogynist! You're so sexist. Men having their own space. How dare you?
I know, right?
I know. I am a woman-hating woman. But yeah, it's like then when we started like this entire conversation, and then
what would they say? What is it? Internalized misogyny, right? You have internalized misogyny. Yeah.
Yes, I have internalized misogyny, and I objectify men and women. So I am the worst of both sides.
How dare you? How dare!
I know. I stared at Eve's ass a little too long.
Well,
shame me
I
now.
mean, who isn't? Who isn't?
I'm going to be honest. Everybody probably should. I can't wait for it. I can't wait for it to come to PC, because I refuse to buy a PS5.
Yeah,
my friend Phil of Project Eggroll, I love he had this clip that was circling on the internet where, like, he was on the ladder scene and he was playing it for the first time, and he's just like this with his controller. I'm just shocked that this exists in a video game in 2024.
Oh my gosh.
It's great, and I love it. I put on the most revealing outfit that I could. That wasn't the naked one where my shield's gone.
Who did it? By the way, who did it? Men and women, right? And like, it's normal. Like, look, I mean, spoiler alert for people that may think this is offensive, but both men and women like sexy women, right? Like, it's a positive thing. And going back to games like what was it, RE, or was it 4 or 5 with like Sheva, when you could like change her back into the sexy outfits, right? Like, this has been in video games for a while, and it used to be in video games quite more often. And it still isn't in video games, in a lot of Japanese games, Korean, Chinese, right? But it's just this Western market that's gotten so sensitive about it, and so requiring of all big games to have orc-like, orc-like females, right? It's kind of insane. Now look, if you're gonna have, you want to make a game that's representative of reality or whatever, and you want to have all sorts of different types of people, that's fine, right? But not every female looks like, they came straight out of, the latest edition of D&D, right? It's not.
You're not wrong.
Speaking of D&D,
you're not wrong.
Speaking of D&D, did you see that the orcs are now modeled after Mexicans?
No
Wait,
fucking way.
Wait, really?
Hold on. Yeah.
Are they holding tacos? What's going on with the orcs now?
No.
Wearing sombreros.
Send me
they're
that
wearing
image.
Ponchos.
Well, I did hear that Wizards, like, they changed so much because of quote unquote allegations of racism, that orcs are no fucking way.
Yes, fucking way.
Is this official?
It's
art?
official. It's official art.
No. I cannot believe this.
Hey, but this makes it even better because Mexicans are the most racist race out of all of them, so...
Yeah.
They made them rancheros.
That's what people don't know about Latin America. Like, I'm over here in Asia, and it's the same way, and I'm like, y'all who claim to be culturally sensitive have never gone to other cultures because they're way more racist. way more, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, in fact, when I was in Miami, we didn't have a lot of Mexicans. So literally, if you ever called somebody who's Argentinian or Colombian or Brazilian and you called them Mexican, you might as well have dropped an N-bomb, right? I mean, like, they would flip out on you if I call an Argentinian Mexican, I might get stabbed, right? Or Dominican, I mean, I probably might end up in a gutter, right? So, yeah, no, these are things that people who have never met anybody, right? These are usually comments and things that people who make that sort of stuff, they grew up in a gated, completely white community in a very progressive neighborhood, right?
Yes.
And they might have one token friend, right? And that's about it. Whose dad is like an executive at the company.
Pretty much.
Right?
That's what most of them are.
Yeah, it's really sad. They really need to get out there in the world and really hear, people's difference in culture, people's difference in ideas, right? I don't even like, the calling it like, oh, we're going to call it Latinx or whatever, not just because it's stupid and not just because Latinos and Latinas reject that completely, right? It's thrust upon them by weirdos, but because it's so different. I mean, I like to call people by where they're from as a country because the countries are all different, right? Asia's super different, Latin America's super different, Europe is super different. So get very specific, even get regional, because in the regions it's a lot different, right? You're from Mexico City, it's a lot different than if you're from, another city or the countryside or the random place in the Yucatan, right? Your culture is completely different.
I agree.
Well, I know the joke is always ask a British person what they think of Romani people and just see their attitude change. But I've had British friends, and you can just ask them about different regions in Britain, and all of a sudden, like, this weird, like, internal racism comes out. It's like, oh, we don't associate with people from that side of Britain. They're, like, dirty, smelly, ugh.
Yeah, they're like, you're from Swansea, you heroin-addled, like son of a whore, right? It comes out like Liverpool, Manchester, fuck those guys, and same in the U.S. sometimes, right?
Yes.
When we have big rivalries, like I'm from Miami, and you ask me about Jacksonville, I'll go off for an hour about how that city is nasty and the water smells like rotten eggs, I mean, and that's just a Florida thing because we know those other cities, and we have, I don't want to say a rivalry, but just like a knowledge and a distaste for it. That's normal, and we should just say, look, that's normal. That's not bigoted. That's not horrible. That's just coming out of your culture.
Well, it's kind of, so when I grew up in Idaho and Utah, and then I moved to California and San Diego when I was in my teens. And when I was in my teens, I never knew that, because, I was one of those people that grew up in a mostly white area. And then when I moved to the more multicultural area, I didn't actually know how racist Latino people could be until I saw them live at the border. And they were racist towards other Latinos. Because they were like, a lot of them were just like, oh, did you actually come here legally? And a lot of them would be like upset with the others because it's like, I came here to work and you came here to steal. So it's kind of crazy how some people can.
I mean,
there's a big dude. I'm in Miami where there's Cubans, right?
Yeah.
And here's the even crazier part. We're getting this is some real specific racism, right, and hate, right? Not even racism, but they care about what year your family came to the United States, and 2 years difference can make a big difference, because there were people that got out when they saw the Cuban Revolution coming. There's people that got out like during and then after, right? And they view the people that came after below because they didn't either have the foresight, knowledge, or they may have been complicit. They may have actually been communists that ended up getting screwed. Because in any revolution like that, you end up having people that get screwed. Like, think about Trotsky during the Soviet era, right? Trotsky got completely fucked. I mean, the guy was killed by an ice pick in Mexico, right? But he was a communist, right? He was definitely down with the communism, but he got ice picked in Mexico, right? So, at some point, they look at that, and they'll even look at people who came later as Marielitos, which are the people that came when they opened up the prisons and the insane asylums and they sent everybody to Miami, right? And they'll put you in these groups, and you are like an untouchable, right? If you're a Marielito, it doesn't matter that you're a Cuban. They're all Cuban. They can even be light-skinned Cubans. But they will view you as like a Brahmin, like as untouchable. And that's just within a single group of people from a country.
Pretty much,
right?
Pretty much.
and it just shows you, like, you don't, these people, when they're talking, they don't have real experience talking to real people.
No,
they're weirdos.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I see that the most in the VTuber. Like, I tell this to people all the time. The VTuber quote unquote community. I don't call it a community because it's not a community. It is an industry of people, and so many people from all different creeds. I at least once a week I see a VTuber say, "Why are so many different VTubers toxic, mean, and rude?" It's like, because literally that guy could be Christian, that guy could be Muslim, that guy could be black, that guy could be white. There's so many different things mixing in that, like anime, that you're gonna get some weird people in here. All right.
And that's honestly, that's kind of why I like it in a way, right? Because it is a reflection of the cross section of the people that like anime. We looked at HoloLive's strategy, right? And even Niji has a strategy, even Niji, right? Where they acknowledge that the people they're targeting to get into VTubing is they're targeting people that like idol culture, because those are easier to get into VTubing, right? If you're already following idols, particularly if you're in Japan and you're following idols, you're a very easy sell for VTubing. VTubing is like a easy sell for you because you understand idol culture. But beyond that, this now going a step beyond that, above that, is people who like anime. Because for VTubing, right, regardless of whether you're into idol culture, like for example, I wasn't into idol culture, but I'm into anime, right? I'm very into anime. So that's why, for me, VTubing is like a very natural thing. It's like, oh yeah, it's a natural progression. It makes sense if you're already like anime, and that is a target audience. And anime is super broad. There are people very conservative who like anime. There are people who are very super woke who like anime. Yeah. Right? Now, that can lead to some interesting discussions, right? Particularly if we get into stuff like shipping, right?
It's a little too broad sometimes.
Yeah, but that said, and it can lead to fights and stuff, but that said, I think that, that's the beautiful thing about it, and I like that about it. I really genuinely do. And I like that it's a space that if you're positive about it, it can be a space where people of all these different areas can get together and enjoy it. Right, where somebody who is a white Christian conservative can get together with a black guy from black guy who's voted left his entire life on a BLM, and they both like Demon Slayer. Like they can get together on that, and they can all be cool. Yeah, I like that.
No, yeah, I definitely agree. And I do like VTubing for that reason as well. I think for me, when I first got started, I really just enjoyed the aspect of I'm trying to remember. So my very first VTuber was actually Kazuna AI. And when I first saw that, I was like, one, I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And two, I want to do that as well. Unironically, my first view of Kazuna was when they accidentally face doxed themselves because of a camera malfunction. I don't know if anybody remembers that. That was like the saddest thing in the world. Because they face doxed themselves.
Because they didn't want to do it. That wasn't unintentional.
Oh no, it was an accident. You could tell because I saw the pictures. They were very afraid of when it happened. And I was like, okay, that's really cool. I want to do that one day.
Oh, you want to face dox yourself? Man,
no. I wanted to do this. This was just a really cool thing to me. Because I always liked content creation, but I never really liked it up until I was like, oh, I can be anime, because I always liked anime. So I love it for that reason.
No, and honestly, it gets rid of the main barrier. And look, I'm a guy who just I'm fairly based on stuff. I just felt like it is. It gets rid of one of the barriers to streaming that is very difficult for folks, especially female streamers. And I'll say it. There's a difference between male and female streamers, right? Yes. It gets rid of the appearance side, right? So your appearance is taken care of, right? Because you have a avatar, so you can focus on doing what you do best, which should be entertaining. It can be gaming, it can be comedy, it can be whatever else it is that you like to do, and you can focus on that, right? And it takes that big stress of having to get ready, having to do what all the Twitch ethos do, right? And spend 2-3 hours getting ready for a stream, because you've got to be presentable, and then beyond that, you've got to maintain that presentation over time, and etc. Right? So it levels the playing field and allows people to access it, which I think is a good thing. I really do. And you don't need to worry about people making fun of you, right? I still have people for my coverage making fun of my physical appearance, making fun of whatever, right? People do that all the time. No, I don't give a fuck. I'm like a honey badger about that stuff. But it is something, right? And that can deter a lot of people. And it's very difficult when you have people attacking your physical appearance or attacking something about you, and trying to continue to have a positive stream, trying to continue to make content. If someone's out there and they're flaming you, and they're like, oh, your nose is so big, or you're so whatever, you're so fat, or exactly whatever it is, that's pretty distracting. But you go in the VTubing world and, you know, that can be all shucked and you just focus on making good content, which I think is what is a good thing about VTubing.
I think it does depend, because I've seen some VTubers get really sad. I remember one time I saw VTubers like, oh, they got mad that I'm not streaming with a real avatar. They think I'm ugly. It's just like, okay, don't care about it. Like, that's one of the things that I constantly tell people in the VTubing scene is your ability to care deters your ability to make good content. So if you stop caring about these mundane things that don't matter, you'd be a millionaire by now. You know what I mean?
Right.
and because like we cover drama mostly just in the VTuber sphere, because oh my gosh, is there a lot of it. You probably see a lot of it every single day.
Oh my god, I have so much to cover. You know, it's like, that's what I love about the VTubing scene. There's so much to cover. Now, I tend to cover stuff that can be legal, right? So, you know, and you guys, I don't know how you feel about this. Let me know how you feel about, like, everything being called drama, right?
Oh yeah, no, I've had to bring it up with people before because some stuff just is drama, even though it sounds like it shouldn't be. And then some stuff that is really serious, people are like, oh, it's just a little drama. It's like, they accused him of killing somebody. What do you mean?
It's like, yeah, this is them breaking the law. And they're like, oh, it's just drama. It's just drama. It's like, no, there's a point at which this is an actual, like, this is something that is actual news. These are facts. These need to be reported, right? And there's educational value that you can learn. And I always try in every stream to be teaching people at least one small thing legally.
That's
right?
good.
Just even if it's super small, just slip it in there, you know, get it in there. And so it's not all just me repeating the facts, because that's what every channel can do. Any channel can go and pull the story off of Reddit and just read it. Right, that anybody can do, but I try to add that, you know, extra 25% value of, okay, here's the legal analysis, or 50% value, whatever, of here's the legal analysis on top of this news or these facts, right? So I add that layer in when I'm covering stuff. But there's a lot in the sphere, and the big thing is it's an unregulated industry. It's a almost completely unregulated industry. And that creates some wild legal situations.
It does. I mean, like, one of the first things that we ever covered was an agency that hired a minor.
I forgot about that.
Oh my gosh.
Which one?
Accio
Air.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I got attacked for covering that.
Why?
Okay,
Yeah.
like, when the Accio Air thing first came out, like, I was handed like this a decently large Google Doc with like a bunch of information on, like, you know, some of the moderators, and like about Nofi herself and her, like, you know, 3 other agencies she was in previous to Accio Air. And like, I was giving this document to like False ID. I gave it to a few other drama channels before we even started. None of them wanted to touch it. Absolutely none of them wanted to touch that shit with a 10-foot pole. So I'm like, okay, if no one's gonna cover this, I guess I will. And that was like one of my first steps into, like, you know, drama stuff. And then that's when I roped Mizu into it, and he was like, okay, yeah, sure. And just, it was wild. And then suddenly, after, you know, things got announced, then it was suddenly okay to talk about it. And then this document that I had out started, like, you know, blowing up. I'm like, okay, well, you could have had this, you know, a few weeks ago, but okay, I guess it's safe to talk about it now. We were there first. Yeah, I was here first, fuck you. Oh,
yeah.
Man. I don't know. Go ahead, sorry.
No, that's, I mean, there's a point at which stuff needs to be covered, and sometimes people don't want to cover stuff for a good reason. There's a time when, look, guys, I get a ton of things. I've actually said this on my channel. I've seen every single corporation's contracts, but I haven't covered publicly every single corporation's contracts.
Damn, every single one. That's crazy.
Major. I know there's like a bunch of minors that I haven't seen, right?
I should show you mine, because technically we're technically in a group, but we don't have contracts because we're not really doing anything much yet. but we're
Well, people
technically
will just
alone.
send me a contract and be like, "Hey, what's your opinion on this, Andrew? Hey, can I get your thoughts on it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll keep." And they're like, "Can you keep it confidential?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's not a problem." I mean, that's not a big deal. And I say, obviously, I have to give a disclosure. Not, in most cases, people aren't paying me; they're just asking me to look at it. So, hey, this isn't an attorney-client relationship. I'm just giving you some helpful, friendly advice from a guy who happens to be a lawyer, right? Legal disclaimer. But that said, I've seen all, but I haven't covered it because a lot of the issues, and even sometimes when they want me to cover it, I've had people who want me to cover it. They're like, "Oh man, I think X corporation really fucked me over," and I look at the contract and I'm like, no, they didn't fuck you over. You probably were violating the contract, right?
Yeah.
I don't always side with the individual, right? With the VTuber over the corporate. I sometimes say, no, legally, you're kind of in the wrong here, bro. Like, I know you don't want to accept it. I know it's difficult. I know there's extraneous circumstances, but the contract you signed says X, you did Y. I don't know. And the contract is not illegal or unenforceable. It's actually reasonable, right? In that case, I'd say, yeah, you're probably not looking so good, man. Like, for example, if you did stuff without giving them notice and notice was required, yeah, that's kind of reasonable.
Yes.
If you're required, for example, to give them notice before you post a video or whatever else, that's in your contract, like, you kind of got to do that. You kind of can't not do that, right? And now, if that now you can say, oh, well, the contract is not reasonable. Okay, that's fine, but also you probably shouldn't have signed the contract. Right, in the first place. You probably should have had somebody read it and said, hey, look, if they're requiring you to give them a week's notice of every stream, maybe you don't want to do that. I would die before I ever signed a contract that says I'm going to give somebody a week's notice, because I cover news. So how would I ever cover news if I needed to give a week's notice, or even 24 hours is too long?
Oh, yeah.
Because the news cycle moves quicker, and if I don't cover stuff like the Disney tapes, if I didn't cover that then, it wouldn't have got the views that it got by me covering it instantly. And I know that.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. I do think that some people overblow contracts. There have been times when we've seen VTuber drama and I'm like, I don't know, I don't really disagree with this, and it just doesn't end up happening. So I think unfortunately some people just don't actually understand how contracts work at all.
Well, let's get one of the facts out here about VTubers, and you guys confirm or deny this, right?
Okay.
The average age of most VTubers is on the younger side.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm starting to see people say hag
it
VTubers.
depends when you started, because the big fans of VTubers tend to be like, I would say, like 2000s, 2010s anime fans. So your biggest groups are probably in your early to mid 30s, and then in your late teens to early 20s.
But I'm now I think you're right about fans, but I actually meant creators.
Oh, you know, with creators.
With creators, I feel like they're more often young. And I only believe that because I see a lot of people saying, "Where's all my old hag VTubers?" and you never see any of them.
Nice. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. You had my favorites, and it's hard to name, but like Sayu, for example, who I've worked with, I help cover her stuff. She's great, right? Older, right? I'll watch her streams all the time because I like Fire Emblem and retro gaming, so I'll be in her chat very often. But like I like my hags. I like my hags. But that said, I see the people in the audience, and I just think in both the creators and the audience, and I think sometimes they're probably a young person who doesn't have much life experience, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or I'll see a creator asking a question. I'm like, this is something that's normal if you've worked a real job. And then I thought, oh, they probably haven't worked a real job.
No. The amount of people that I see where they're like, well, it should be this way, and it's like, have you actually worked a job, bro? Because that's not how jobs work. It's like, I could get fired in my regular job if I do that.
I should be able to do whatever the hell I want and still be paid. I'm like,
no,
well, that's not how life works, right?
Like,
what was the one we covered the other day where the person said that they believed if this was a real job, I would have had a 3-strike rule for mess ups?
Oh, do you want to say who?
It's like,
no way.
Okay. Okay. So, Mizu, do you want to say who?
No, I don't remember. That's why I was asking.
Okay.
I just remember we talked about it, and I made so much fun of them because I was like, at my job, we have a 1-strike rule I feel my job is very, very lenient. We have a 1 strike rule for any specific fuck up. So if you mess up something with like one of the machinery, you get 1 strike with that one piece of machinery, and then you can get a strike somewhere else. But if you mess up with that machinery again, you're gone. That's it.
I'm trying to remember.
It was.
You can't afford it because, by the way, legally, if you have an employee that has a history of negligence, that is huge liability for your company. Massive liability for your company. Particularly, you mentioned machinery. If you're working with like dangerous machinery, potentially dangerous machinery, yeah, you can't have fuck ups. You cannot.
They just threw me off so much. It's like, no, you don't. Most jobs are not giving you a 3-strike rule. That's not how that works.
Yes.
Akko, do you remember who it was?
Yes, it was Lara and Redclaw that said that.
Oh yeah, Redclaw said it, I think.
Yes. So they literally were like, "Oh yeah, we feel like you should get multiple strikes." I'm just like, have you worked a job? Because like I work in package delivery. So being a safe and efficient driver is like literally before actually getting to the delivery in terms of safety. If I hit somebody with my truck, I'm getting fired. There's no 3 strikes to that. I hit like my truck. If I hit somebody, chances are they're dead because that thing is a giant metal machine. There's no 3 strikes. So I was just like dumbfounded that like some people would say this. Like, do you not work real life?
And
or are you
like,
a nepo baby?
In connection with that, what I noticed, like, even if some of the VTubers are like in their mid-20s or so, some of them think that, oh, I suddenly have like more than 3 viewers on my streams. I can quit my job and my viewers can pay for everything. It's like, I literally just made a post about this. I said, dear VTubers, if you're consistently having issues paying bills and having food, streaming is your only income, get a job, even if it's part-time. Unless you're a consistent high 3 view, this is not, don't have this as your only job unless you can't physically work.
I've never, ever quit having other sources of income, even when my YouTube is completely capable of supporting me individually. Like, I've never stopped that because I think it's always important to have that comfort of, okay, I've got this other money, even if YouTube's not coming in. I'm not going to be on the street. I'm not going to be begging. I'm not going to be doing it. I'm not going to be, eating, I'm in Asia here. I'm not going to be out eating like, $1 pad thai every day, right? That's not going to be my like destiny. Street food, I'll be eating like the scorpions and stuff like that. And that's not my destiny, right? But especially for people starting out, they have these delusions that they're going to be a million sub channel, make all this money, and that's not how it works. You got to grind for a long time. My channel was over a year until I got to profitability, and I sunk so much money into it, right? In the beginning. You're probably going to, especially as a VTuber, for your model, for your rigging, for everything else, you're probably going to sink money into it. Probably going to be in the negative for a very long time before you come around, you hit your niche. And you might have to change your niche and change what you do several times, particularly if you're an indie, right? Because you don't have that corpo backing.
No, I knew somebody that streamed and they believed that they could make it their career, and they started off, and I was just like, man, that's not how this works, because you cannot just expect to go from 0 to a million. Like you can workshop it, but thinking that from day one you can just depend on your audience or depend that YouTube is going to pay you, you're going to, my personal belief is if you get into content creation purely to just make money, you're going to fail, because passion comes before the payment. And if you put your passion into what you do, the money is a byproduct of your good work. So I believe that all of the best people on YouTube exist because they put their passion before the money.
And they're doing something that works for them and that the market wants, right? So there is a market component, right? Because obviously, as much as I could say, and you are right about being passionate about it, but you have to align that passion and people want it, right? So the people that are the best YouTubers have aligned those two things, right? Have made an alignment of the two things. People want it, and they want to talk about it. So for example, if I start giving out medical advice, nobody's going to listen to my channel because I'm not a doctor, right? And nobody wants to hear a lawyer give medical advice. Also probably get in trouble at some point, right? Like in addition to me getting in trouble, right? Like that would be something that people don't want. Right, people want to hear lawyer legal advice, right? And then there's certain other topics. I find, oh, people are really interested in me talking about anime. I'll talk about that because I'm also passionate about it, and people want to hear me, right? Because I'm getting feedback from the audience. But when people start out, they have this weird thing where they try to force something to happen that may be what people don't want and what they're not passionate about. So they're impassionate about doing it, and people don't give a fuck.
Yes.
Right? So that's what I see a lot, and that's what caused a lot of small creators to fail, because they're doing one of those two things. They're either not passionate or they're not giving the market what they want.
Pretty much. No, I do agree. I think your case is very special because I think the VTuber market was looking for somebody like you to not only provide that legal analysis, but also be into it. Because I think a lot of VTubers, especially the ones that really like you, wanted that and were seeking that and didn't have that. So I think you definitely fulfilled the niche that the market wanted.
And I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be in the community, and my goal is to help and be a positive influence, right? I have a lot of aunties. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I got some aunties out there.
I've seen it, yes. Yeah. So they're all funny.
They're hilarious because a lot of times they'll attack me with stuff I didn't even do. Like they'll just like throw out crazy things, and I'm like, well, I never said that, right? It's just it's really wild. But that said, I get why, and actually I have a little bit of empathy for even aunties because, and to a certain extent, I actually support gatekeeping out tourists, etc. So I view taking a little flack as if that's my like initiation, is people giving me flack, like that's fine. Guess what? A year from now, 2 years from now, I'm still going to be covering VTuber issues. That's not going to scare me off because I have a couple of aunties. That's right.
I get it. It's exactly how we feel.
That a lot.
Oh yeah.
First off, not just covering drama is just going to get you in trouble in general, which I'm fine with. But more so seeing other people try and copy us, and then they like immediately lose all their passion. They're like, "Oh, people get mad at me. I see all this negativity all the time." Like,
unironically, I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
Unironically, when we started our thing, and I'm not gonna say that this was us, causation, or excuse me, it's not
correlation
causality.
does not equal
there
causation.
We go. Sorry.
Yes.
But there were like 2 or 3 other people that decided to either start doing this or start telling the news, and I swear all of them have either stopped or just aren't good at it.
Because a lot of them, they get into this mindset. Because we were talking about earlier, you have to have some level of passion for it. A lot of them don't really have passion for the negative parts. There was one guy that tried to model himself as just the positive news anchor. That lasted not very long. Because you can't just cover positive news. There's honestly not that much of that, to be honest.
And that's not what people want to see.
And look, guys, I'm going to say for my channel, I do literally try to work in as much positivity because I don't like being negative all the time. I really don't, right? And I try to do that. I think the good thing about VTubing is you can work that in the form of clips, right? So in between segments, I'll roll a clip. I'll roll something funny, something that gets us going in the other direction and shows us there's great content creators out there and there's great people to watch that you can just enjoy and that's separate and apart from the drama or bad news or whatever. So it gets, the some of the bad stuff, because covering legal stuff is when somebody is fucked up legally or something bad is going on. So what I'm covering is going to tend to be negative, right? In terms of the feeling it's going to provoke from people. I mean, a righteous indignation is probably going to be the number one feeling you're going to get.
Yeah.
But, the beautiful thing about the VTubing experience is so much positive. So I try to lace that in, to celebrate that as well, to show, hey, there's good. We don't need to be black-pilled, right?
No, I agree.
And especially in the FleshTuber world and coming from I still hang out with a lot of the pop culture guys, the guys that are covering stuff like the Geeks and Gamers Squad, the Neurotic Squad, Midnight's Edge, those guys. When they cover all the normie media stuff, like they're currently going off about the Acolyte, it can tend to be all negative because they're not presenting here's something to be happy about. And there's only so much of that I can do and be happy, right? So my focus on a content creator is my long-term happiness and being able to do this long-term. And with VTubing, I am able to cover VTubing topics long-term, and I can see this because it has a balance.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I think for us, we try to take the Medicare approach of laughing at everything, and that helps.
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I laugh at a lot of the shit we cover, and it really
Just don't
helps.
sell hats. Just don't sell hats.
Oh, we're not selling hats.
I want to sell hats.
We're selling. We're going for We're going for posters first.
Okay.
It's like I think one reason why we still have the passion and drive to do this every week is because the podcast is once a week. We just kind of sum up everything that has happened. Like, what was the most amount of call-out Google Docs we had to cover in 1 week? Like 6 of them? There was a lot.
Yeah, we were talking about a VR streamer, I believe, and they had like compiled a bunch of different Google Docs trying to call somebody out that didn't even respond to them, by the way.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the Minecraft trees?
Yes, it was the
It was the Minecraft trees one.
Okay,
Yeah.
unironically, there was a Google Doc that was put out where somebody got mad at somebody else for planting Minecraft trees. There's a little more that goes on top of it, a little more that's a little gross. But literally, the best way I can sum it up: guy plants trees in a Minecraft server, makes young girl cry. That's it.
That's it.
Their whole evidence was this is proof that he is bullying her, because why else would he plant trees on her Minecraft build?
I'm not kidding. That is it.
This is the part where I'm like, all right, please grow up, people. This is a little bit like let's stop the victimhood Olympics here. You've already got a medal for participation, but let's.
I know Akko said little girl, but this girl was she was like 19, and all of her friends were in their mid-30s.
Yes.
You kind of lose you should know better at this point.
Yeah, it was.
And it's like the worst part about that entire situation is that the dude, the initial dude that was calling this other guy out had this girl RP as his daughter for the past 3 years since she was actually a minor.
That was so weird.
Yeah.
See, these are, this is exactly, so when people criticize people in the VTubers, that is a specific example being like, yeah, that is probably something pretty weird.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, people still ignored it. Even we hammered it home when we talked about that document. We're like, because him and all of his friends that he got to write documents about this included the girl's name, and it would say her name, who, by the way, is his VR pretend daughter. It's like, why are all of you keep saying it?
They hammered it home every document. I need to change the thumbnail.
It was a normal thing, and it's like, that's not normal.
Yeah, and then I did a little digging on her account and his account, and it was like a whole he was having her VR chat RP as his kid since she was 15, 16 years old, which makes it worse.
That's just that's grooming. Sorry, that's grooming. That's grooming.
The lawyer said it, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Grooming is not legal. By the way, grooming is not itself is not a legal term, right? But it's what crime does grooming lead to?
No, yeah,
right?
You're fair. You're right. I'm gonna be honest with you. That was so messed up, because the entire time we're we don't want to assume anything is going on, but when you have all of these other components listed with it, what else am I supposed to think?
And plus it's VR chat, so it's
it's VR chat. VR chat was made by furries, for furries, and anime degenerates. What is the kid doing here?
So I guess we could ask this from a legal...
Yeah, sorry. Although things can be made for one thing and used for another, right?
Like
Viagra was made for heart conditions and lung conditions, and that's not why it's used anymore. You know what I mean?
Didn't they realize that because it was making it worse for people? Their blood pressure was going up instead.
Or microwaves used for the military, stuff like that have one use to another, right? But yeah, go ahead. Sorry, get a question.
Oh yeah, because we had a long discussion about would it be worse if the girl was paid and she was an actor, or if she was doing this for free. So if you were in court and they actually did something and they were trying to make a case for it, would it look worse if she had been paid under the table for it? Or there's your issue, under the table, right?
Yeah.
So you can have a child actor. We have children that act, right? With parental consent, right? Parental consent or guardian consent of someone who's over 18, who's looking in the best interest of the child. And if that child's exploited, that's on the company and the parents, right? Because that child is being exploited. There's people that are supposed to be watching out for this and preventing that child from being exploited. So if this was done as an actor and she was paid with parental consent, then actually that'd be fine. But I don't think there was parental consent here.
We don't know.
Didn't.
We don't know.
Exactly,
They never
hey,
said.
Mom, can I RP as this dude's daughter in VR chat?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest.
I highly doubt that.
If you want to listen to it, I'll send you the stream because we also talked about how Ninja Sanji became Ninja Sisters became an N-word. That was a funny stream, but like,
It's so
oh my
stupid.
gosh,
The Ninja Sister stuff is so dumb. It's so dumb.
yeah. But that whole stream, the entire time, I was just like, God, I pray that this child is okay, because like I can't. The amount of times where I see, especially in the VTuber scene, where I see minors getting hurt or harmed or groomed, and it just, again, I have to find some way to laugh because that drives me insane.
Yeah, it is crazy.
And
It
for
really
us,
is crazy.
we have to think about talking about it a lot, because even though I really like covering drama stuff, anytime I see in a document child, I'm like, now I've got to like read through this whole thing and make sure like there's nothing incriminating against this kid. I really don't like talking about kids in this kind of context. It's weird.
Yeah, we don't like kids at all, but like,
Because
Yeah, but it's like if it's someone being exploited in the VTuber scene, I feel like it's kind of a duty of ours to let people know.
yeah, no, it's just, I don't like it.
Yeah. Well,
mean,
if someone's being exploited, I think there is, I don't want to say a duty. No one has to do anything, but I think that's a righteous cause, right? I think it is a righteous cause to expose people being exploited. Right now, there's a reason why, though. I will say that I like my position because I never go first, and there's a lot of things where I'm cocking the gun and I'm about to pull the trigger, but I'm waiting with the sniper shot because some other news will come out and it'll be like, oh, that was fake. That post was taken down. This was bullshit, right? So sometimes it is a little bit dangerous to leak stuff and break stuff right away. And one of the dangers for drama channels and news channels is to be the first one to leak stuff. Like, for example, I'll give one on Assassin's Creed with the Yosuke Black Samurai drama, right? I saw the other day there was somebody that posted a alleged historian who's like, I'm a historian and I'm here to say that this never happened. And it turns out, and people agreed with that or critically agree with, that the story that they portray in Assassin's Creed is ahistorical, which is true, by the way. It's not historical at all whatsoever, right? But they look into this guy who said, I'm a historian, and he's not a historian, right? And it's like, okay, you've gone and run with that angle of a historian said X, and now you may lose credibility because you run with information that's ultimately proved to be false. I will say a little bit of due diligence is merited, I think.
Oh yeah. Well,
I seen that, and it's like, one, that really sucks. And like, what was another thing that was like that? Who was it? It was some dude that messaged Grums saying that he was an employee at a company, and then he was like, oh well, and then he came out saying, oh well, I just lied to Grums, and I told him all this shit. He reported on it. Doesn't he look stupid? Ha ha. That type of thing. I'll see if I can try to find it. I think it was something to do with the Sun Wukong game.
Yes, probably.
I have no idea.
I gotta double check on it. I know there was like a mistranslation for some things, but then that started kicking up other stuff and just.
Yeah. I will say.
Yeah, and once again, we've got a lot of people like, you guys are familiar with Medicare, so I can say this term without you guys misunderstanding it, right? I can say like the gay ops, right?
Yes.
And you guys say the 24-hour ops, right?
Yes.
You get what I mean. I always worry when I say it on my stream with like 6,000 people that people think I'm making a slur.
Oh yeah.
And no, it's just a reference back to the old forum days when people would engage in some shenanigans. I am very wary of that. So a lot of times I try to double vet stuff and confirm stuff, ask with other people, because I am very wary of false flagging, of, you know, false information, being fed crap, right? So I sometimes don't play stuff. And it's the same reason why if someone sends me a link, I often don't play it during the stream, because you can't just be clicking on links you get emailed.
No, I
right?
agree.
And playing it without checking it out at least a little bit first.
I agree.
You know, you can lose your channel that way.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
you know, just be very careful with vetting information. I think that's very important.
I will say...
Yeah, we've always kind of taken the idea of, we really only cover it for fun. We're not trying to do like news crusades against bad people necessarily. But if we do, we need like really, really good like confirmation.
Oh, yeah.
I think probably the best one we did was when we covered a guy called Poppy who had allegedly abused his girlfriend. I still say allegedly, but she had actual phone conversations with him doing it. So, like, in that case, I feel perfectly comfortable being like, yeah, no, he did it.
Oh, yeah.
We've got,
like,
that's hard to fake. I mean, maybe
like
not anymore.
The balance of evidence. Like, if I'm seeing video evidence, right? Like, I'm like, yeah, this is a pretty strong presumption. Yes, you can fake video. You know, you can do that, right? But you've now got to show me that's fake, right? Now the burden is on you to tell me that is fake and explain how that's fake.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And I will say that, like, hell, when it came to the Kenji stuff, we canceled our stream because, like, we were going to do something completely different when we saw the Kenji stuff. We spent an additional day because we saw it and we were like, okay, let's wait and see what happens. And oh boy, did more stuff happen than 24 hours later. I think like 24 hours later, everything was already done. But we were like, we're still going to talk about this. We're going to round everything up. So, you know, I feel like with us, we try to make sure that there is no gay ops, which is why I'm really glad that, again, we do it once a week, because oftentimes some of the best things that we cover typically happen the day after we do our podcast.
Right.
It happens way more often than I think.
Yeah, and that can happen where like you miss the perfect chance to cover the issue because there's this like this Goldilocks zone with you have enough information for a really meaty episode, like versus doing it quickly, right? Because the longer you wait, it can kind of the news can become stale, right? It becomes stale. It becomes old news. But at the same time, sometimes additional information will come out. And there's this Goldilocks zone of covering at just the right point. Because you could cover a story and all you've got is like some basic facts or maybe a twit longer or whatever else. And then all of a sudden, a day later, you get emails, right? You get whatever, DMs, you get et cetera. You get stuff from social media, from Discord, right? And if you waited and done that episode a little bit later, it might hit up. You know, have more of a punch to it, right? And people that might have looked at the first one and dismissed it might not dismiss the second one because you're like, okay, it's no longer just a twit longer. It's no longer just, you know, some Google Doc. It's now substantiated by XYZ, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. So, like, yeah, we definitely don't like to rush to things. I would say that the only time we quote unquote rush to things is when we've started doing this where we will react to something either the day after or when it happens, just to like get in the moment. Kind of like when commentary people like to sit down and talk about things. But I'm very like hesitant to like do a big podcast unless we're ready to say this is what we see, this is what we know, because at least as far as I know, we have for the most part done that. And yeah. I don't know. I feel like we do a good job with doing.
I think we're batting 100.
I feel like we're better news reporters than actual news reporters, and I say that while trying not to throw up because I hate news reporters.
It's like one thing we always clarify with people is that they try to say, oh, you guys are shit journalists, and it's like, we're a drama channel. We're not a news channel.
Exactly.
Journalist is a dirty word.
It is.
Yeah. Journalists aren't real people like socialists.
Oh, so I've actually had this question for a hot minute. I don't think it was one of the ones Akko wrote down, but it was a legal related question. I am convinced I am correct in saying this, but say I'm trying to avoid names. So there is a VTuber group that funds a VTuber expo of sorts. and somebody on staff at the expo, allegedly, at the expo that does not exist, sabotages the VTuber group's panels that they partly funded. I believe I'm correct in saying the VTuber group probably doesn't have like a legal leg to stand on, depending on the way the contract is worded.
Well,
I know a lot of these events don't give guarantees.
Yeah, I was saying what's in the contract. Like once again, I would want to read the exact language of the actual contract. Like what specifically does it say? Not what does somebody tell me it says.
Yeah.
See, that's the big thing. You know, you cannot trust people's interpretation of the contract, especially if they're not a lawyer, because they may look at a word like may or shall and interpret that differently than maybe a lawyer would, you know, looking at that same document. And they can have what somebody told them it means, and they're saying, oh, well, my friend, or even sometimes my lawyer told me this is what it means, but I'll look at the document and I'll be like, that's not actually what it means, right?
Yeah.
Right, it's at least in America under the guise of an American attorney, because I'm an American attorney. Maybe that would mean something different in Japan, right?
Right.
And people have told me sometimes when we cover the Niji Sanji contract, for example, like the header, it didn't say independent contractor agreement, which is what it would say in English, but somebody who spoke Japanese immediately told me, no, this translation in Japanese is for independent contractor agreement, right? This is like the standard for an independent contractor.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay. This checks out, right? And I said that on air. I disclosed that, right, when I covered the document.
I definitely think a lot of people, especially in the VTuber space, because it is new and it does have so many young people, there's a very not very legally educated. Granted, most people aren't very legally educated. Law is complicated.
Yes.
But I see it a lot specifically when people bring up the lolly question. Is a lot of people don't know that laws, there's a lot of reading. You can't just read like the top of the law. There's a lot of definitions. There's a lot of precedent that it gets set around laws.
Countries, right? Because different countries are going to regulate that differently, right?
Yeah.
You know, so like you can't make a sweeping statement. Literally, that's a whole. If I did a show on lolly, which God help it, I don't want to do the whole lolly show.
I understand why.
Like the law of lolly, right? I mean, it would get a lot of views, but I just don't want to fucking touch that with like a 90-foot stick.
You can join us for the 7-hour lolly debate that happened on Twitter.
Well, I don't know, but here's the thing. I don't care about I don't want to engage in the debate. All I'm saying is like the law is, I'm here for the law side, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not here for the moral side. I don't like making the moral point. I think it hurts my credibility if I start making a bunch of moral arguments all the time. So I try to very clearly disclose when I'm making a moral statement, what I say is wrong or right or just or unjust, and it's from a moral perspective. I try to make that very clear, because I know people are listening to me as a lawyer, so they're taking what I'm saying as legal. So I do try, especially in the VTuber space. And people have mentioned they're like, Andrew, your coverage is a little different in the VTuber space. And I think it's because I'm cognizant of the people being young and not knowing, and I don't want anybody to misinterpret what I'm saying as a legal opinion, right? There's certain other lawyers on YouTube, like Mr. Legal Schmiegel, right, that will conflate personal and political beliefs with their legal advice.
That's
and they
dangerous.
won't clarify. It's extraordinarily dangerous. And it's miseducation and it's inappropriate. I try to make sure, look, I am telling you, and look, yes, I have opinions, right? Yes, I'm not a fan of the politics of Gavin Newsom, you know, but that if it's very clear when I'm telling you why I don't like California versus why something may be constitutional or unconstitutional. Those two things I try to keep those very clear and separate. I think that's important. I think it's very important.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. I think people definitely get lost in the moral argument when it comes to stuff like lolly. And it's just like, bro, what does the law say? The law says this. Okay. You can say that you hate
That's
it all
my
day.
take.
Exactly.
And anybody who asks me my take, that's my take. What's the law?
Exactly.
Right?
Like
Here's the law.
Like my whole thing is like, because like I used to be on that side of being heavily anti, and then I was like, you know what, okay, what's the law? Someone described to me the law. I was like, okay, morally I can say I don't like it, but legally I just don't give a fuck.
Sure. That's right. That's your right. Morally, you cannot like anything you want. You don't have to do anything. That's what blows my mind is like, people are like, I don't like VTubing. Then don't fucking watch it, right? Like, if you don't like, I don't like anime, then don't watch it. stop trying to get rid of it or purge it from the world or whatever else. First of all, that's never going to happen, right? You know, you're not going to purge anime or VTubing or whatever else from the world. That's never going to happen. Just don't watch it. If you don't like the content or lolly or even lolly-ish content, because there's lots of shades of gray of what is lolly and not lolly, whatever. I don't even go into that.
Yeah.
But, you know, just don't watch it. If you watch somebody like, this is too childish for me, go hag love, baby. Go up there and watch that. You know, if you're into male VTubers, grab your Vox Tenga and go head over there. You know, whatever you're doing, you know, there's somebody out there for you that's offering a different sort of content that's not that. And when everyone says, you know, when the people that are tourists say, oh, all VTubing is lolly, I'm like, you guys are crazy. You guys are literally crazy, because that is a very, to me, it's a segment, but it's a I would say smaller segment, right? It's not 50%. It's lower than 50% for sure.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I definitely
And
agree.
yes, it's out there, but it's not the majority of the content of VTubing, and it's a misrepresentation. And I can say her name now. It's like Voldemort, that like after Voldemort's been killed, you can name them. Brittany Venti is retired now. I didn't know this till recently. Yeah, she's retired. Apparently she got married. She's off the internet, right? So now that she is gone, and it will not give her any more clout, I can say, for example, that like her war against Gura, right? Because that was one of the arguments was lolly, you know, etc., and what comes from that, right? So like that argument was always a shit argument, because it showed they don't know VTubing and they don't really watch the breadth of VTubing. Because there's a lot of people, and hell, for me, look, you know what I'm really into? The moms. Those moms are kind of spicy. I'm just gonna lie. When I saw Pacora's mom, I was like, all right.
That way. She still gets fan art.
I've seen some of the fan art. I was like, whoa.
I need some carrots. I'm feeling a carrot deficiency, you know?
You gotta get your eyes better.
Yeah, that's I got it. This LASIK wasn't enough. I gotta get some carrots. But yeah, no, like, people just don't know. They're tourists. They clearly don't know VTubing.
No, yeah, I agree.
I also think a lot of people just don't, like, when it comes to talking about whether stuff should be legal or illegal, they don't think it all the way through. Right. Okay, if this is going to be illegal, what else has to be illegal in order for this to make sense? Because you can't just say, oh, we're going to ban this one very specific thing, and then we're just going to ignore it and not talk about it ever again. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of other questions that come along with, okay, we've decided this can be banned, so what other stuff can be banned?
Yeah.
And if you want to change the law, then how would you change the law, right? What law would you write to change? How are you going to do it? Okay, all characters depicted have to be of age 18 and up. Well, what if they're a very young-looking person, right? I know many people, I live in Asia, right? I meet many people regularly that are in their 20s or even 30s that could pass for underage, right? Yeah. Like, because they're just very short, maybe very petite, very small, and you wouldn't know unless you card them, and you're like, wow, you're 35? Okay, you're 4'7", you know? I mean, like, this is just reality. It's like, what is your line? Okay, now they've got to look older, right? That's a weird way to enforce a law, right? You know, it's like, okay, someone could be, you know, you could say the character is 1,000 years old, is a vampire that's 1,000 years old, but they look younger. Well, what is that? Right? Yeah. You know, how do you enforce these laws? It's really weird. It's really janky. And of course, by the way, most lawmakers are boomers, so they don't understand anything.
Yeah.
I saw this with the Vic Mignogna case, because I followed that pretty closely myself, and I felt his judge was like super boomer. Because like, so you do this anime thing, and you somehow make money off talking. It's like, yes, he's a voice actor. They make money off talking. How do you... I feel like this is very simple.
You know, Judge, in those old-timey cartoons, remember back when there was the black and white one? Remember Steamboat Willie? You know, it's like kind of like Steamboat Willie. It's a talking picture show, you know? And you got to sometimes go that level with judges. And having dealt with it when I was in Florida, they can be really boomerish at times. Now it's changing. The generations are changing. People are eventually, unfortunately, you know, I'm not trying to glorify death or anything like, but people are dying, right? You know, and this is changing and will change, right? And people who understand at least these basic concepts are coming on. But it's going to be so slow. That's why I say this VTuber stuff and the VTuber legal problems are going to continue for my guess is a decade, because until the people that really get into this and really know it get into power, it's going to be a long while till we get proper regulation. We might get something super janky in the next couple of years, maybe something that comes out of Japan, or maybe something that comes out of a big country like America, but it's going to be a while till we get comprehensive international regulation of this sort of stuff. It's going to be difficult.
Well, I think it even applies for like YouTubers, because even after all these years, I feel like YouTubing is often not seen as like a valid job, even if somebody's like PewDiePie levels of big, and they
Or even Mr.
treat
Beast.
them like, oh no, if YouTube just banned you and took all your money one day, that's perfectly fine, even though you're making literally millions of dollars like every month or so.
So how, I mean, tell me, Mizuhana, tell me how this is not any different than a regular job. Can't a regular job fire you at any point?
They can. I think my question that would come up with YouTube is, because I don't know if you ever saw when they included this, but they basically included of if they ever wanted to claim like your video, they could ask you to repay all money that video had ever made back to YouTube.
I've not seen that, but I think how that would usually come down the pike is that would typically be a demonetization before you've gotten paid out, because you're paid in arrears, so you're always paid for the stuff in the month previous, so they've got plenty of time to get your shit, and YouTube does get your shit. My second channel, Go East Gentleman, was actually fully demonetized for a hot minute. I had to appeal it because I posted one clip, I guess, which came from somebody else's social media or something about the Singaporean Prime Minister saying that wokeness is not going to come to Singapore, right? Which was incredibly based. But, that said, they're like, oh, your channel is entirely, this is what I got, we're demonetizing you because you're majority or entirely reused content. And I go, what the fuck are you talking about? I have 335 videos. One of them is perhaps objectionable. I went and deleted that, and they repealed it. Like, oh yeah, you're fine. You got nothing. I'm like, you guys are just doing these stupid automated reviews. Like, no, the real humans aren't looking at this shit anymore.
No, they're not. I don't think they have enough people to do that now.
No, they don't, and they can't afford it, right? And it takes you escalating it, and me sending in the email and the appeal, and even the appeal was automated. I had to actually go and appeal the appeal and be like, hey, can you have a human look at this, please, because I don't think you did. And then it was immediately overturned, right? They're like, oh yeah, you're fine. Right, so I don't think they would make you pay it back, because that'd be pretty hard, right? YouTube's not going to go suing people around the world to collect money unless it's a real big paycheck, like millions of dollars, like Mr. Beast or PewDiePie level video. I don't think they do that, but they might reserve the right. But by the way, as we've learned with Adobe, which I just covered, a lot of these terms of service are illegal. People are putting stuff in these TOS, and YouTube and Twitch, they're no exception. They're putting stuff in these TOS that are illegal. And the issue is that there's these lawsuits over TOS don't happen instantly. They're very slow, and they take usually a lot of people having a problem with it. So the problem is these illegal TOS are essentially allowed to operate, and it creates this area where we have a real problem. We need some way to enforce, to attack these TOS instantly, or to get them to go through some sort of legal approval process, so they've got some sort of stamp. And once again, look, for everybody who says I'm some crazy right-wing person, I would even advocate for a government agency that reviews TOS. So before you update TOS, it's got to go through a government agency. Holy shit. Did crazy Andrew just say that? Yeah, I just said that might be a good use of government, right?
Do you know how often a TOS gets approved if that were to happen?
Exactly. They would think carefully about their TOS and not update them every 2 minutes, right? And they would try to make them as good as possible, as thoughtful as possible, and as legal as possible. I think that'd be better for everybody. Now, that does assume the government is doing its job and not corrupt, right? So there's that. Right, but in a perfect world.
A perfect world.
Where government is doing its job and they're just and neutral and everything is great, that would be good.
No, yeah, I totally agree. I think my big problem, and I believe Azahara brought it up in the chat, DMCA needs an overhaul or a fix of some kind.
Huge overhaul.
And my big problem is, and I know that YouTube really doesn't want to get involved, because if YouTube gets involved, then they're part of the lawsuit as well. But I feel like YouTube should just be like, okay, if you want their video taken down, you sue them. And if they don't take it down, then you can come back to us. I just don't really like how they immediately side with somebody And 9 times out of 10, it could be fake, or they're lying, or it's fair use. And I just wish it would be changed. But we have boomers that don't care.
And also the writing, people are just now talking about it again because more people are bringing up. There was a really viral one about a guy recorded his washing machine tone, and anyone who had that same brand of washing machine got claimed because it had the beep noise from the washing machine. But even well before that, like years ago, there was a pretty popular music creator called the Fat Rat. And he's still pretty popular.
Of the Fat Rat.
He is still very, very popular. Like million sub type channel. And years ago, somebody uploaded his entire discography to YouTube's automatic claim system. And it took him months to convince YouTube that no, that's literally my music. I literally own it and have copyrights on it.
Yeah, and YouTube was like, well, you got to resolve it with them. And that's the big problem that I have. It's just like, okay.
There's a lot of, by the way, there's a lot of those like IP trolls where they buy the IP from another company for everything, and then they spam people on YouTube with claims. And there's issues with our system, and that is an issue with DMCA. It's an issue with YouTube. YouTube, by the way, does not implement DMCA according to the actual letter of the law of DMCA. They always put the presumption in the favor of the large corpo that owns the shit versus you as a small creator that may have a fair use objection or some other reasonable objection. So they're not implementing DMCA like clearly as they should.
No.
Yeah, my impression was that because I felt like I was reading DMCA correctly as a non-lawyer, but that they're doing it backwards. They're kind of doing it backwards. They're like, well, they're claiming that they own your stuff, so they just own it now, and you have to sue them to prove that they don't. When in reality, I was under the impression they had to sue somebody stealing their stuff and claim, yeah, that person is stealing my things.
YouTube does give you an appeals process, and there is a point at which, if let's say if you have a fair use objection or whatever else, or like you own it, etc., there is a point at which you can say, hey, you have to sue me, but you have to dox yourself. See, this is the big thing for VTubers specifically, right?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You have to dox yourself if you want to fight back, and that's fucked up. You shouldn't have to dox yourself, right? To fight back, you should be able to give, at a very minimum, like a corporate address or a registered agent's address or some other proxy address, and saying, hey, you can send stuff here if you have a lawsuit, right? But you shouldn't have to fully dox yourself in order to go through with a challenge, right?
Yeah.
I think that's wrong, and by the way, that's used by people to threaten people. It's used as a tool. So, for example, trolls will go ahead and claim stuff, right? And then in order to fight back against them, you'll have to dox yourself to them. And then their real goal is to get your dox.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they know they can use that against a lot of people.
Pretty much.
Especially VTubers.
Yeah. I think the only way to work around that is to make an incorporation of some kind.
Which is why the corpos have an advantage, because they've got the corpo accounts. So the corpos deal with that for them. So everybody who says, because I remember like a lot of the weirdos and some of the folks that have been covered, I know Kirsha covered this, but like we're saying, well, what does the corpos do for you? They're not doing anything but stealing your money. No, there's a certain level of protection there. There's a certain level of protection there from defamation, from lawsuits, from IP, especially with IP, right? Mm-hmm. Honestly, for me, if I could partner with a corpo just for IP and sponsorships, IP protection sponsorships, they would be worth 25% of revenue easily. I would just say, yep, there you go, just for those two things, right? Because you can make so much more money from sponsorships. Right. And then on top of that, being able to deal with IP and saying, hey, when Nintendo comes for me, you're going to fight. You know, I'm electing you as champion. You go fight them. That is worth it. There is a value to that. That's a real value.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I 100% agree.
Having people that have lawyers is nice. It's real nice.
Oh, no, I 100% agree. It's one of those things where I even see this on Twitter a lot when I commission artists and they're like, oh, let me just give you my PayPal. And it's like, bro, this is your first and last name. And they're like, yeah why don't you put your business on? Because like I put my business name on it because when I became a VTuber, I made a business name, and that's the business name that I use. And it's just like, yeah, no, it's Octoset Entertainment. But like I see them and I'm like, hey, listen, I'm not trying to freak you out. but you just doxed yourself to me. And some of them don't even realize that.
Yeah,
Well,
but
they'll
it's
send-
like the thing with PayPal is like I opened a business account. I didn't even use it once, and PayPal was like, "Oh, sorry, it's closed now." I'm like, "But why? I didn't even use it yet." And I didn't feel like fighting them because PayPal sucks. But which is why I'm happy VGen exists, and I haven't had any issues with VGen, but I am appreciative of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think something that really bothers me in the VTuber world, and I don't know how much you've seen this, but VTubers will routinely dox themselves for trends.
What? Dox themselves?
Yeah,
What does that
okay.
mean?
Like
Oh,
show their
face
show their
doxing.
pictures, show identifying information. I know there was one.
Because they see other people getting clicks on it.
Yes.
Is that like okay? Yeah, and that's okay. Let's talk about this real quick. I think this is some bullshit, guys. Don't fall for the trends because sometimes these trends end up biting you in the ass. I mean, we're seeing right now, at least for a certain segment, how like hentai tier lists are getting, it's like that cause people to get flack,
Careful,
it's
guys.
it's like careful with what you put out there because it's permanently out there, right? And you're thinking, okay, I'm gonna get $30 or $50. Is that worth what you're putting out there forever? Right? There's some streams that I wish I could reel back, and I'll say myself, I'm not innocent here. I fucked up on stuff, but if I went back that stream was like, you know what? It's the money or the stream. I'm killing the stream and giving back the money every single day.
I agree.
And it's like a lot of people don't realize that there are crazy people on VT that archive this stuff like psychopaths.
We love VT though. VT is cool. We love
VT,
we love
because
archivers. Archivers are really cool.
But you guys are A-logged on a whole different level. Like VTubers are A-logged on a whole different level because of and part of that is idol culture, right? Part of that is idol culture because they want to know everything about their Oshi. So they, it can be coming from a place of hate or love, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes the strongest hate comes from people that were formerly the strongest lovers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's just like I also learn because like I never use VT because I get confused with 4chan. I don't know how to use it. I get confused and then I just try to forget that the website exists because I'm stupid. But I hear from a lot of people that indies love promoting themselves on VT, and it's like, why do you want to expose yourself to VT willingly? It's like
Don't do that, chat.
certain people can successfully court a VT audience. The average indie cannot court a VT audience.
One of the funniest things I ever saw, and I can't remember specifics, but when I used to surf the farms, I saw somebody that tried to they made an account and then they talked about themselves and like trying to be a troll, and everybody's like, bro, we know it's you. And then they became a locale, but not in the way they wanted. And it's just like, this is not how you gain relevance.
Let me just speak to this. This is actually really relevant now. If you're trying to court VT or the farms, right, and you want to make that your viewers, understand that can be a very flawed rationale, because oftentimes people that view one type of content, a forum for example, are not people that are watching long form content on YouTube. They can often be two different types. I learned this because I started actually I did YouTube in the beginning, but I also got really big on TikTok, and I learned when I had 500,000 people on TikTok subbing to me that, oh wait, these people on TikTok don't watch YouTube. So it is a fool's errand to try to convert these people to YouTube viewers, because the people that have the attention span of a parakeet and are flipping through videos, every 2 seconds, are not the same people that are sitting there and watching a 2, 3, 4 hour video. That's a completely different segment of people.
Yep, pretty much. And that it does kind of suck, because I don't think a lot of people, I see a lot of VTubers that do that too, where they go over to TikTok, they post all their clips. A lot of VTubers on TikTok, very big, very successful in what they do, but it doesn't translate. It doesn't translate because the
or
long...
monetize.
No, exactly. And in fact, TikTok is getting worse and worse, where they're being less focused on the creators. So I see all these people that make all this short form content and it doesn't lead to anything. And I've seen a lot of VTubers start and then stop immediately because it doesn't go anywhere. And it's kind of sad. That's why I don't do shorts. I don't really do shorts anymore on YouTube, because even on YouTube, the short form content doesn't lead to people that watch your long forms or streams. It's crazy.
You can look. I'll say this: try it out. But you know, try it out for a month and see what the results, or 2 months or 3 months. Try it out and see what happens. And if it doesn't work, stop doing it. Right? If it's not working at all, stop doing it. Now, there are some things where you have to work hard and get over the hump, etc. But you can see incremental progress. If you're seeing a little bit of progress, if you're getting, you know, if you're getting 10 subs a day, doing something, and you're making little baby steps, go do that. Do that sort of stuff. Make your baby steps. That's fine. But if you see that it's really not getting you the clicks, views, it's not worth your time, you're putting all this effort into it, and you're getting nothing, stop spinning your wheels and do something different, right? That's a big suggestion from me to small content creators. I spun my wheels for a very long time, trying to be super neutral and not have an opinion on anything and be super apolitical. And then I realized, oh yeah, that's not going to work, and nobody's going to like you. And actually, I had some business calls with some folks that are on YouTube, Tim Schmoyer, and then also I was in a group with like Hotep Jesus, right? And he was like, yeah, man, you gotta have an opinion. And Tim Schmoyer said the same thing, hey, you gotta have an opinion, right? And I'm like, well, what if it's like a slightly right opinion? He's like, doesn't matter. And I'm like, really? He's like, no, have an opinion. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, and I'm happier for it. My channel is better for it. And I'm here today sitting at 150K subs because of that.
And growing.
Right? Yeah, and growing, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm not stopping. I love doing this because I set it up as stuff I love doing, and I love doing, you know, I still love doing small podcasts, and you guys podcasts. I love coming on talking about anime, right? And creating a sustainable environment that you can do long term without burnout is number one to the YouTube game. Number one, because people come out and they want to do this grinding Grant Cardone-esque 10x. You know, I'm doing 2 streams a day. I'm streaming 7 days a week. They're done in a couple months. Ugh, they can't sustain that.
I can't do that.
No.
I see that all the time. I see a lot of VTubers that like they'll go really hard with the grind and then they'll stop and then they become VTweeters instantly. It's kind of sad.
Yep. Well, because they don't understand, like, that's not sustainable, right? And also your chat is going to get accustomed to you doing 7 days a week. And when you stop that, they're going to be mad. Versus if you are someone that starts with 2 times a week and then you increase to 3, they'll be happy.
Yes.
Right?
Pretty much.
See that difference? Huge difference.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. The growth on YouTube is very interesting. I mean, I learned that myself because, like, I started out doing a little bit of variety. The problem with YouTube is unless you get into the VTuber specific niche, because there's a lot of different niches, and I don't think a lot of people know this. Unless you're in the VTuber specific niche, you cannot do variety content because then it's going to try and put you in so many different categories that it won't understand. Right. Like if you're playing classic games one day, then you're doing a chatting stream the next day, and if you're singing another day, YouTube doesn't know where to put you. So early on, me and my manager, we talked about, okay, where do we want to fit? Because the VTuber box is very hard to fill when you're brand new. Unless you're a corpo and you can get in that very easily, you got to choose a niche. So my niche is looter shooters. I play Warframe. I play Destiny. I'll play the First Descendant when it comes out. That is my niche. That is what I have captured. If I make videos on it, those videos do well because that's where YouTube knows where to put me. And so that's what people need to figure out.
Yep, is what your box is, yes. And the more you can niche is actually better. People are afraid of niching. They want to be generalists. But I'm like, nah, it's not going to work out. You need to figure out the thing you're known for, right? And become that. Look, like, even with us lawyers and, like, the quote-unquote law tube, right? You know, there's a lot of lawyers. So, like, if I was just a lawyer on the internet, that's not enough, right? But now getting into the micro niche and saying, okay, if it's anything about Disney, that's me. If it's anything about, like, Florida property, that's me. If it's anything about VTubing, that's me. I'll take that lawyer on the internet VTubing, right? It's like sub specialty, right?
Yes.
You know, it's like that's where you want to fall because then you'll know where you are, you'll know what your niche is, and it'll help you with your content. You won't be constantly searching on what to do. In the beginning of my YouTube career, I would spend 8 to 10 hours searching for news. Now it's easy. Number one, it comes to me because most of my dedicated followers will send me good information, which I encourage all of you to do. Please do send me good stories.
Happens to us too.
But I know where to look. I know exactly where to look to find news on VTubers. I know exactly where to look to find news on Disney, for example, or, you know, whatever else I might want to cover on the day, or anime, or something else that's happening in the gaming world, right? You know, it's easy. My research time has dropped dramatically. Now, I still do it for every single stream, and that is very labor intensive. But, you know, if you're layering on 2 to 4 hours of research for even a 1 hour stream, that's a lot of work. That is a lot of work every single day. But that said, it reduces the amount of time. It makes it better for you. So if you know you're playing Destiny or looter shooters, right? That just makes your job easier. You don't have to worry about what you're doing. You're doing that.
And I know the audience. I know the audience, and I know what they want. I know that specifically they want build videos, they want jokes, they want because like in Warframe, you're either making build videos or you're making little jokes and you're messing around with the people, or you're telling people for the millionth time how they can get the in-game currency easier. But it's just
can we talk about boba, because I feel like this is something I want to talk about real quick. So like I feel like, at least to me, when I first came into VTubing, this is like my observation, is that it seemed like a lot of creators were relying on like, I've got big titty waifu print money now. Is that a pretty fair? Okay, was that a pretty fair assessment? Like of some new creators, baby creators that are coming into this and saying, "Well, I've got the boba."
Some people still do it. Yes.
And then they'll cry and whine if they don't get subs, and it's like, well, what are you doing other than having a model that has boba, right?
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
Especially when Twitch is very anti. I know YouTube to a lesser extent, but Twitch especially is very anti like any sort of exposure. So you're already you're risking yourself.
I had to cancel that episode because my AC repair guy came over. But I'm ready to do that episode again about their Twitch policy. But for VTubers, it is more strict than for FleshTubers. That is super.
Do you know why? Do you have any idea why?
Yes. No, I know exactly why. You guys don't know?
I don't feel like I understand it. It makes no sense because like they care less about VR people even, and I have a 3D
You don't
model.
have a hypothesis? You can't come up with a hypothesis of why they might not?
I have two hypotheses actually.
Okay,
I have
go ahead. I want to hear.
The real life one, and then I have the conspiracy one. The real life one is real humans really can't affect like how they look necessarily. As a VTuber, you are specifically choosing how you want to look. So to a degree, you have specifically designed yourself to be hypersexual. Whereas a regular girl that just has really big tits, well, she was just born that way. There's no way she can solve that. My second conspiracy is that every guy that manages Twitch is just a massive coomer, which is why simp is a banned word on Twitch, and they just prefer 3D women.
Yeah.
This is both. By the way, so both of these things are true, and beyond that, it is the personal relationships. This is something that is actually been pretty proven behind the scenes. Because remember, VTubing is new, and Twitch has been around for a while. The people that have the deepest and personal connections are people like Pokimane and Amaranth and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
The classic ethot, right? They've got these personal relationships, and they go to Twitch and say, look, it is not fair that we spend 2 hours getting ready for a stream and thoughting ourselves up and et cetera, and we have to look good, and these people just turn on a camera and they can be in sweats and a t-shirt, with Cheeto stains on them, and no one cares because they see their cute waifu, which by the way can have a toggle to completely change their appearance, which satisfies men's need for like diversity and change, etc. So they can do things easily that enhance their appearance that FleshTubers and ethoughts cannot do, and 3D ethoughts cannot do. They said, look, you need to sandbag these people, because if you don't, they're going to take over. So they say, okay, yes. They also all think, all of the Twitch mods, they're huge simps. They're all usually mods. A lot of the Twitch staff are mods in the chats of these large creators, right? They're like deeply tied in with them. So when they send them on these missions, they go and hit people, they go and strike people down, and they also think, oh, I can have a chance with her, right? And this is gonna I have a chance of smashing Amaranth because I went and got that evil VTuber for her. She's gonna reward me with her poo nanny, right?
Don't put that out of context.
These are the saddest sacks ever. Right?
What was it, Pokimane or Amaranth recently that had one of her editors come to her and be like, I can't edit for Pokimane? I can't edit for you anymore because I spend too much time masturbating to your clips.
Yep.
And that's guys, that's par for the course. I'm telling you right now, that is par for the fucking course.
I'm not even mad, just disappointed.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like, okay, like to extend on from the Twitch ethot thing, is that I'll never understand why like these women present themselves in a certain light. Amaranth has this fucking like vagina yeast beer now, I guess.
Fuck.
I
Yeah.
forgot about that. Why'd you remind me?
Oh,
You're
fuck.
welcome. I'm not sorry.
Get your bathwater.
Did you hear about
She didn't get her money for that.
She got what, almost $400,000 in the red for PayPal because each chargeback was like what, $2,500 per, not chargeback, like infraction for their rules and stuff. So that poor woman. But like, whenever someone says something slightly objectifying, suddenly they throw on the victim card, like, how dare you will objectify me like this? I'm a person too. And it's like, girl, please. Like with Morgue Pie, she was topless and she was shaking her subpar tits.
I'll never get over the girl that got banned for like 2 days for having sex on stream.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And by the way, so let me say something real quick. Those bans of 24 hours or 2 days are literally helping the creators. They give them a day off because they all want a day off anyways, right? They don't give a fuck about 1 day of revenue, right? Or 20 or 48 hours. And the news of them getting banned gets them more clicks and views than they lose from the day of streaming. So Amaranth or Pokimane, trending for getting banned helps them more because it's only a 24-hour ban. That essentially is a ban that is for drama and news sake, right? Yeah. It always helps them. So I've stopped even covering stuff like that because I know it just helps them more than it hurts them.
Oh, I agree.
Right?
I agree.
So I mean, it just let Twitch. They're gonna favor 3D people, which is why I say for VTubers, I know it's easier. I know YouTube is the harder road. It is, and I fully acknowledge that. But once you get past the requirements and you meet them to monetize, I think long term it's a little bit safer for VTubers than Twitch. I think there may be more stuff coming down, and Twitch can just straight up say we ban VTubers, and there's nothing that VTubers will be able to do about it. There's no legal recourse for that. No. If they just say, "Yep, we're not allowing VTubers," you're done.
I think a lot of people are turned off on YouTube, and I don't know why. Because like when I first started, again, it is harder. It is a lot harder. It's harder
and lack of like interactivity with the streamer because there's to be able to use the emotes. I get memberships and subs work a little differently, but at least with memberships you're a little more incentivized because then you have like membership, member only videos, member only streams, and you can kind of like put merch and everything connected to your YouTube, which I honestly think once you get past that, you can have everything just on your channel and, advertise yourself better. Twitch is, that's where everyone wants to go because that's where all of the big streamers are. And, rating works a little better. And it's like, YouTube can improve a lot. They need to take a couple pages from Twitch's handbook. It's slowly getting better, but it'll be a long way.
I would say, by the way, I feel bad to a certain extent because like for multiple years, like people have seen that Twitch is very favorable towards a certain amount. It's getting worse and worse and worse. People think, oh man, Twitch is getting better. They're letting you multi-stream. Twitch is not getting better. Year over year, I still feel like Twitch is getting worse. Twitch is still going to favor the same demographic. And the people that are realizing that now, this is why I multi-stream. People thought some person blocked me because
the 13-year-old Coomer demographic, is the thing. Or by the way, married men. Actually, that's another big one on on Twitch. Two demographics,
No, but like my biggest thing is like I tell people, you need to multi-stream. You need to make multiple forms of contact on multiple platforms because the day is going to I tell this to people and they think I'm crazy, but the day is going to come when Twitch is no longer here and no longer available for you because you are not what they want. It is very obvious what Twitch wants and they do not care about certain demographics. That is why when I got with my manager, he's like, I want you to get on on Restream. I want you to stream to as many places you can. I used to do Facebook. I used to do TikTok. I did all of them, because the moment you settle on one is when you are done growing, in my opinion, because there will be a moment where that platform is gone.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
You got to diversify.
Or if it's not gone, the monetization is hit, right?
Yeah.
So the last thing you want is all your eggs in one basket. Now, it is inevitable that it's not going to be perfectly balanced. We're not Thanos snapping this to perfect evenness, right? You may be, being like, look, Twitch is 20% and YouTube is 70%, right? In terms of like a revenue basis, or it could be vice versa, right? But at least you've got something, right? Something is better than zero, right? If I'm making, even $2,000 a month, right, but I'm getting 500 from YouTube and 1,500 from Twitch, well, at least you're making 500 from YouTube, right? Like that's better than zero, and that number will build. Trust me, it's got to the point where I get money from places and I'm not even sure where it's coming from, because I'm doing multiple platforms. I'm YouTube, Rumble, Locals. I've done Twitch before, and actually recently I've been even thinking of adding that in, as a mix, particularly since I'm covering more VTuber topics. So I might just put my VTuber topics only on Twitch, right? Because this is something I literally, like, one of my new thoughts that popped in the last month was, yeah, maybe I do that, because I've always been kind of afraid with my former content when I was a little bit more political, because Twitch, as I said in the chat there, Twitch is super woke. They are super, super, super anti anything, even an inkling of based. But I think if I kept it to covering VTuber stuff, I think it'd probably be fine, right? So I probably could get away with just uploading that stuff to Twitch and having that be kind of like Twitch, the only stuff that's kind of restreamed Twitch. Probably. There might be people coming out there that they go to the Twitch executives and they point to my older stuff on YouTube and they get me banned, or a Rumble video and they get me banned. That's possible. But what's lost, really, right? By restreaming, and like, if I get hit on that, what's lost? In fact, I can make a video, Twitch banned me, and I'll get a ton of views on that. Yes. So that might even help me.
Yeah, and it's like, I was looking into like the Twitch ambassadors specifically after the whole like safety advisory council, whatever, was disbanded. And a lot of them have some common similarities in terms of politics and where they stand on certain things. And definitely, if Twitch itself like doesn't get you right away, one of the ambassadors are going to get you, because like, I decided to make a very mild joke about, like, I forgot their name, but the deer girl that was a safety advisor
Ferociously Steph.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Steph. I just said, wow, identifying as a deer is kind of cringe. And a Twitch ambassador was like, oh, you can't be transphobic here. And I'm like, I just said identifying as a deer is cringe. What was transphobic about it?
Well, no, you're supposed to love it. If you don't love it, you're a transphobe. You're a transphobe. You've got to accept it. You've got to love it. Anything other than Yas Queen is unacceptable.
Yes.
Unacceptable.
I still think it's wild the deer girl was there.
Yeah.
They did nothing, though.
I didn't think that was real. I thought this was a troll. Like, when I saw that, I'm like, this is not real.
Oh, yeah. I didn't believe it
It's
either.
hard to imagine somebody actually thinks they're a deer till you watch that video of the girl who claims she's a wolf from like the BBC or whatever.
Well, and once again, this is a natural extension of the flawed logic of a certain segment. Because, by the way, I want to say something real quick, and I've had this come up even, in many of my streams, whatever. I don't like putting this on, quote unquote, the trans community, because many people in the trans community will say, yeah, these people are crazy. Right? Like, identifying as a deer is categorically different than me as an adult choosing I want to do this, right?
Yeah.
And choosing I want to live this way, right? That's much different than saying, like, thinking you're a deer versus thinking, okay, I'm an adult, I want to go through the body modifications to look like a woman now, right? Yeah. Those are different things, right? Those are categorically different things, right? And you're never going to be the wolf, right? I mean, like, you can't physiologically modify yourself to become the wolf, even close, even 50%, right? You're not going to homunculi yourself. So this whole, like, people can identify as an animal or object or building or whatever else they identify as the Eiffel Tower. It's gone to a logical extreme, which I think is a matter of us saying we don't have a legal standard for this, and we need a legal standard that says this is what it means for if you want to be legally considered as, for example, female, this is what is required, right?
I think that's coming.
Z. And you can create a legal standard that's trans friendly, right? And that I think people would agree with. Now, there's going to be people that'll disagree with it, but you could get even the majority of a community on that side that says, hey, if you want to do this, you've got to do X, Y, Z, and it's going to prevent you from doing X, Y, Z, right? And you accept the possibility that this can happen. Also, we do need to have limits on stuff like prisons, because I think people getting raped in prison is not okay, right? Stuff like that, like that women's prisons, right? That should not be happening, right? So there need to be certain common sense legal limits on this, and we just don't have the law there yet. It's coming. I do agree it's coming, and some states and other places are passing things, but it's slow. And all I've ever been advocating for all the antis that hit me on this issue is just common sense, right? I'm not saying that people can't do what they want to do with their lives, but let's have some common sense rules and regulations and guidance on this. Mm-hmm. That's all.
I agree.
It's like, this is why I agree with Buck Angel when he says that there's a difference between transsexuals and transgender. Transsexuals are more level-headed, and they aren't part of this group where it's like, okay, yeah, let them identify as a fruit or a season. The transgenders are the one that are like, oh yeah, gender's an umbrella and you can do anything you want.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I like those terms.
And this is something
chat, I'm the controversial one on this podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and people very much don't like me. I don't know why. Say anything.
People think that I am the good and pure one, and Mizu's the devil.
You're the Saiso, and he's the Yabai.
We got into some drama, and while the drama was going on, people were saying, Lumi, you need to leave Akko and Mizu. Akko and Mizu are horrible. And the entire time behind the scenes, we're like, these people have absolutely no idea who they're talking to right now. If they did, they would lose their minds.
And this is why Arch and Dev sniped me for Archcat. They're like, I like this fish. She's coming on.
Yes. This is good. This is good stuff. I was actually thinking, for me, it's very common sense because I live in a lot of places here in Asia. I started out in Korea. I moved down to Thailand. I spent a lot of time in Japan and the Philippines. But when I'm in Thailand, which I am right now, it's always funny seeing the way that it's dealt with here versus America. And it's like, if you asked a ladyboy who looks, and some of these ladyboys here in Bangkok, they look entirely feminine, right?
Yeah.
You would be like,
100%.
100%, and as much people are like, no, bro, I wouldn't fall for it. No, you will. I've seen it happen every single time, right? Where they're like,
I probably would.
And I'm laughing because I'm like, that's a ladyboy, but let's see him approach and let's see how he reacts to this. I'm just sitting there with my popcorn, just like, yep, first time in Bangkok, huh? But they'll tell you if you ask them, are you a female? They'll be like, no, I'm a ladyboy, right? And it's another category. They're like, I'm not X or Y, I'm Z, right? I'm Z, right? And that's how they deal with that, right? Which is to me, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. There's no problems that. We're cool. We're great. Right. And understanding, there's this category of people that, for example, with the military, if they were born male, they have to report to the draft lottery. There's a draft lottery for who goes to the military here, and they kind of pick out names and people can have to go. So if they pull a ladyboy who's a biological male, right, they have to show up for the lottery, they get pulled, but they're immediately disqualified. Right. So there's a physical vetting that process afterwards, and they're like, yeah, no, they let them off that. So there's ways to come to reasonable middle grounds, and it's not dramatic. It's not like this is controversial here. It's just no, that's the way it is.
That's a loophole if I've ever seen one. Want to get out of the draft?
I mean, hey, they can serve their country by being a barracks bunny. It's okay.
You're serving in a different way.
Oh my gosh.
See, on what you mentioned, a lot of guys can't tell the difference. Akko and Lumi have seen me back when I thought I was trans when I was younger. I could tell guys for a fact. No, guys, you cannot tell the difference unless it is somebody who is putting zero effort in at all.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact because way too many of you grab way too much before you figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the wrong thing, and it's that's what I'm really chewing the popcorn, you know.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where it's like, guys, chill out. Not everybody else in the world takes it as seriously as you do. A lot of people in the world are like, it's really crazy to think that, because like when you live in the US your entire life, you look outside and you think, wow, Americans would really hate other countries because of how they act. You know what I mean?
And people are shocked that, like, oh, people can live this way. I'm like, yeah, it's possible to not have this crazy life. In fact, I'll even say this. I'll even say, because we're on the internet a lot, as people on the internet doing internet stuff, we get in the idea that the internet is the real world, and it still isn't, right? That's another thing. So even most Americans, like the normie guys who, you know, the normie boomers going to work or whatever else, or, you know, all these other folks, you know, they might not be aware of these dynamics at all. And in fact, I think most people generally, when I speak to them, are still reasonable people, even in the US. And I think most people are willing to, if you really sat them down and had a conversation, are willing to come to some sort of middle ground or acceptance, whether that's, you know, letting people be, whether that's saying, hey, I morally will judge it, but I'm not going to come here and, you know, protest it or yell and scream and cry on the internet. But I don't agree with it, and that's fine. Yeah. You know, we can live in a world where people strongly disagree with the beliefs of other people, but don't cause issues over it. We all just live and do our own thing and let others, you know, do their own thing. And that's America. That's what America was supposed to be.
And that's beautiful.
Right? Is this place where people can just fuck off and do what they want, whether they're a branch Davidian or whether they're a Mormon or whether they're a conservative Muslim. Who the fuck cares? Right? Yeah. That's what America's supposed to be for.
No, yeah, that's yeah. I'll be honest with you. I hope that some of that returns, because I like that. I tell people all the time, I will vote for the president that says I will literally leave you the fuck alone, and I will never pass anything unless it's to leave you more the fuck alone. I'm voting for that guy.
God, I feel bad for the Branch Davidians. You just reminded me of that.
Sorry, that was a random one that came out of nowhere because I was thinking about like red flag laws and a Second Amendment, but like, okay, yes, there's, and by the way, let me say, there's certain points at which, like, if there was, and I just want to say this because this might be something that comes up, if there was like issues with, you know, if there's ever issues with children crimes or like, you know, people being abused, yes, I think government and authority does need to step in at some point, right?
I agree.
To protect those that cannot protect themselves. I think there is a form, I'm not like an anarchist, you know, I do think there is a space for, okay, this has crossed a line. Are you doing something that's really fucked up? You do need to, there does need to be an intervention here, right? Especially involving children that cannot protect themselves, which is why my analysis for a lot of these issues, including the issues of the LGBTQ issues, it changes when we inject children into it. It's like, okay, the analysis without the children consideration is wildly different from what are we doing with kids, and specifically against the will of children. Right, and it gets the will of the parents. Like that is, it gets a whole different and legally analysis, moral analysis. But yeah, the Branch Davidians crazy case. You know, same with Ruby Ridge, FBI overreach. You know, if you talk about, you know, my distaste for government, yeah, I mean that's a clear issue where government fucked up and could have handled things way differently and saved a lot of lives.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, especially with the LGBT stuff, tend to not like the idea of there being limits to anything. I try not to get like way too political, but anytime somebody brings up like, you know, I think maybe an adult should be allowed to transition, but when a child, I don't think we should let children do it. And suddenly it's like, oh, you want to restrict transitioning? Well, yeah, to children.
The people that don't know what they're doing.
For minors, because I care about minors, and you're not your brain is not fully formed. And frankly, even 19 and 18-year-olds are coming out like teenagers and kids nowadays because they don't have a lot of experience.
Yeah, 25 needs to be the minimum. I'll be honest with you.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that, but okay. At least if you say 18, we have a basic starting point, right? To say all of this transitioning stuff in terms of physical modifications to your body needs to wait to 18. Why is that different? We can't drink till we're 21. If we can't drink to 21, why should we be able to completely modify, like, you know, go in and change something that will physically impact you permanently for the rest of your life? right?
Exactly.
I think that's a reasonable restriction. That's not crazy conservatism. That's actually scientific. That's logical.
Yeah, and it's like the fact that I hear a bunch of people trying to say that puberty blockers are completely reversible if
That's
they
not true.
put their children on it. And it's like they're still spouting this shit though. And it's like because I've been looking at this for a while because like I have a little one, and sometimes I hear at school like, oh, this person at school is saying that they identify as like a they them or something, and I'm like, okay, I didn't think I'd have to have this talk this early, but okay. And
Mom's gotta have this talk. Yeah.
I sat kiddo down, and I was like, talking to her how like people, they can they identify some ways, but this is how biology works, and she knows biology. She gone through health class and all that, and like when it gets to the point where what if this child tries to say like, oh, my parents are letting me take this, like children will phrase it as take this medicine so I could be another, like I could be a boy or I could be a girl, and it's like no, I'd be half tempted to talk to the parents, but that's their own prerogative, and I'm not getting into that shit.
Yeah.
But the fact that a lot of these parents don't look into it, and I live in a state where it's more so right-leaning than left, which thank God. But like, they don't understand that their child will be in the medical system for the rest of their lives if they go through with this.
Oh yeah.
And I can imagine the very large class action lawsuit that's going to be coming down in the next 10 to 15 years. It's going to be probably one of the world's largest class action lawsuits we'll ever see.
Yeah,
and also just people being able to sue their parents and everything else, because like allowing this shit to happen, that's like, to me, it's negligence on the part of the parents, right? Because they've allowed this to happen. They've, allowed them to make a change that allows them to do something that is going to impact them for the rest of their life. Once again, if you're an adult, you should be able to do whatever you want. I'm with it. Your body, you want to make the modification to it, do it. I mean, I would say what I say for plastic surgery, which is just common sense, is just be aware that like, whenever you do something, there are side effects and after limits, and there is a point at which it can improve, but there's a point at which it doesn't improve that much, and then it actually starts to look worse and worse and worse and worse and worse because you've gone too far, right? You got addicted to doing the thing and it went too far, right? So I would say people need to be very thoughtful and also look into the real risk. Pull up the actual scientific studies of what the mortality rates, what the infection rates, what the pain, what the other stuff like that, particularly for the surgeries. Right? Like, I don't think people are really looking into the medical risk for the surgery, because frankly, I live by a 2% rule, which is if anything has more than a 2% risk, I don't do it. And these surgeries have way more than a 2% risk of serious permanent, effects on your life, and even potentially fatal impacts.
Look at the Jenner kid.
In the case of some of the surgeries.
Look at the Jenner kid.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for them. Like, my heart breaks for them every time I hear about them, because like not only was it botched, but now they're like very depressed, and I can't remember the last time I looked up an update about them, but it makes me so sad. It's like, I remember when I was a teenager and I had gender dysmorphia, and I went to a therapist for it, and we discovered I had all these other problems, and I can't imagine what would have happened to me, because like I was on that train, and it just like mind boggles me, because my whole thing is do whatever you want, but you need to be informed first, because there is a lack of information. And I am seeing that more and more with people that detransition, where they're like, I was not informed. I did not receive the information. And I don't care what you do. Like, I know trans people, and I think they're fine. But I think some people don't have information, and it's sad.
I have people in my chat that are, especially when it's coming to Vtubers, just that like, I'm trans and I 100% agree with this position, Like, I don't think I will die on the hill of being informed before you make a decision, generally for everything, right? Like, making informed decisions, it's just what you should do in life. The fact that there's one specific area where we should just throw caution to the wind and, we're saying be informed is controversial is nuts. And I don't grant any exceptions. I don't pull any punches. And if that ultimately gets me quote unquote canceled, okay, so be it. Those people are never going to like me in the first place, right? that's a hill that I will die on, right?
No, I
you know,
agree.
but once again, it's not all I talk about. It's not all I talk about on the channel. And one thing I like about VTubing is that's not the focus of most, VTubing drama is talking about this.
Yeah.
But
No.
it certainly does come up because people mention that, hey, VTubing has a higher percentage, right? So as a percentage of, if you took a normal distribution of people, right, maybe, you have a population that is LGBT. In the normal population, that's under 1%, maybe 2%, right, of the total general population, maybe, right? I think 2% is probably fair. But if you looked at VTubing, it's probably higher. I don't want to say it's 10%, but maybe it's 5%. So they'd say, okay, the distribution is higher, therefore these things may tend to come up a little bit more in the VTubing community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like, with, transgender children and stuff, like, you know how back in the day, celebrities would always parade around like their gay son, like they're an accessory. The trans child is
extraordinarily dehumanizing. It's extraordinarily dehumanizing. I have an aunt who does this. It's disgusting. And I cannot stand, I don't even talk to her anymore. Because it's clear why she's doing it, and it's clear it is a narcissistic projection. It's kind of Munchausen by proxy, if you guys have heard of that.
Yeah.
Where like you want this kid to live out your life, but it's sick to do that to a child, in my opinion, right? Because of your own narcissism and ego. It's just wrong.
No, yeah.
It's like, even though I know a lot of people do not like Matt Walsh, I disagree with him on a lot of things, but I honestly think people should watch What is a Woman, because it is very informational, especially with I forgot his name, but he is a transsexual man that was describing all of his complications from transitioning. There was a botched, I forgot which surgery it was, but they had to take a skin graft from his arm to fix it. And it's heartbreaking. And seeing some medical professionals saying oh no, that these drugs are reversible and stuff, or this is reversible. Okay, this is reversible, but no.
And I like that. I like that you said that. That's very poignant, and that's a good thing to kind of end cap this on is taking people issue by issue. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing I've tried to talk about on my channel again and again and again. We need to get away from totally idolizing everything people say and saying, hey, somebody can be wrong about one thing, doesn't make them a bad person. And even a person that you think that you disagree with on 90% of things can still be right about one thing. Matt Walsh, I agree with him probably on maybe 50%, maybe even 60% of things. But that 40%, I'm very clear and vocal about my opposition to what I disagree with him on, right? And, that's I think important to say, hey, look, he's right about this issue, right? Or this was something good they did, but I'm going to say he's stupid as hell about anime and about, everything else, right?
Yeah.
We might agree on economic policy or something else, but okay, I disagree with you on X, Y, Z. Right, I think that's important.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, we were gonna get some questions. We rambled on too much, but that's totally okay. I
the
wanted
only
to.
question I think the people really need to know is, when is your VTuber model coming?
That's not from Yoji. When is the VTuber model coming? Well, okay. So I have said at 200K subs for sure. But what I've also said is, look, maybe I'll do the at one point. Although we'll see. I got to make sure I'm ready for this life. Accepting the full mantle of VTuber. It's gonna happen, but. Maybe we'll do the donathon, and we'll get it going before then. But it'll happen eventually, kids. Just stick around. I'm sure. Look, I've gotten to 150K subs. I'm gonna get to 200. I'm gonna get to 250K, 300K. I understand it's a long game. It's just a matter of being in the game and having your chips ready. So I've got the chips on the table and I'm ready to play, right? And the most important thing with YouTube or anything else is being at the table. Sometimes if you're at the table, you will win, right? So when a news item happens, when something breaks, when there's some big story, you get a huge bump, you get huge growth. My biggest bumps have all been when I just waited around for big stuff to happen and covered it.
Yeah.
Right? Kyle Rittenhouse, Johnny Depp, Disney, Gatekeeper, right? Nijisanji stuff, right? You know, you know, and now the downfall of Nick Rekieta, right? You know, stuff that will, you know, get you some bumps, and we'll just see that happen naturally because you're just you're doing what you're doing. Right, your growth is going to come. It's going to happen. Right, just be patient. Keep doing what you're doing. Have a plan. Have a niche. You know, get there. But yes, the VTuber model will definitely happen for me. Don't worry. Don't worry.
You go,
I was actually, if I wasn't late, I would have set up my reactive, image with Discord here. But I was like bumbling in here, you know, and I'm like, oh God, you know, I've got to get on. I'm already late.
It's totally fine.
See, you're a VTuber already. You've already got the scuff down.
Exactly. Yeah. Late and gay.
Late and gay, yes, very, very.
Well, anyway, thank you so much for coming on. I deeply appreciate it. You're a very busy man, and I deeply appreciate you taking the time with us tonight. It was awesome.
It's my pleasure. I had a lot of fun. Happy to come on again sometime. You know, it's good to be on with people. It's good to have these conversations. And like I said, I enjoy being on with smaller podcasts and smaller creators from time to time. Although I normally don't do panel shows. I made an exception for you guys. But
I appreciate that.
I did, because they're usually dramatic. But I actually say 4 people is my perfect number. Because it's more like co-hosting than a huge panel show.
Yeah.
And we don't like to do more than that.
And and as co-host, you're kind of incentivized to keep the show together, you know. Versus if you have a panel show where there's 1 or 2 hosts and then there's 8 or 9 people, they don't give a fuck. They're just your guests, so they're coming in to sow chaos.
Oh yeah. I cannot stand it when there are more than 4 people here because there's too much. Absolutely too much. It's bad. So.
And the squares look good. I'm not gonna lie, the squares look good. It looks good when it's like the 4 square. When it's a 8 square, whatever else, just doesn't look good. But no, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. You know, and you know, happy to come on again and have this conversation with you. You know, VTubing is something that I'm glad I found, right? And I am glad there's so many welcoming people in the community, and there's so many great people that are doing great coverage in this community. So I want to help get exposure for people that are doing hard work and good work and necessary work in the VTubing sphere.
Well, we deeply
maybe
appreciate you.
Next time we can actually get through the questions that people send.
It's okay.
Sorry, chat.
It's okay.
We apologize. We had a plan,
it's okay.
But then we decided to talk about other things, and it's totally fine. I love the conversation.
It's okay. It's okay. We'll talk about my K-Song crush next time. Don't worry about it, guys. Don't worry. We'll get into all the spicy stuff. Don't worry.
Oh goodness.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You have a good one.
Thank you.
All right. Good job.
Man, we really do yap a lot, don't we?
We do.
Yeah, but it's fun.
Oh yeah, it's totally fun. In this chat, this is why we do it. By the way, if it is your first time here, we appreciate all of you guys. It's absolutely fantastic. If you are brand new here, my name is Mom. This is Mizu and Lumi. This is our weekly podcast here, and we like to talk about VTuber stuff. Sometimes it's pop culture stuff, but this is our podcast, and we love. If you like talking about drama, if you like laughing at stupidity on the internet, and you like laughing at VTuber creatures, you'll like it here. Did you guys have anything to add?
I don't. I was just flying by the seat of my pants majority of the time because I yap too much.
It's totally fine. It's totally fine. But no, yeah, we appreciate everybody that came by today. You guys are amazing. And again, very big thank you to Legal Mindset for coming. If you haven't followed if you're one of our regulars and you haven't followed Legal Mindset, you should follow him. I tend to listen to a lot of his legal opinions. I try to listen to a lot of his stuff, especially some of the stuff that's most interesting to me. And he's a great guy, really great guy. And I appreciate that someone like him that is in the legal sphere is talking about VTuber stuff. We could have gotten somebody else, and I'm glad that we have him. So I'm very appreciative of him.
And you guys, do we have any upcoming plans to inform the chat about? Y'all doing any special streaming soon?
Well, I'm gonna be starting the Elden Ring DLC tomorrow and then through the weekend. I wanted to play today, but then I had to be a good little co-host and actually, stream here. And then on Saturday, I'll be on Archcast again for those of you who have seen me over there. But yeah, I'll be back this Saturday, and I'll be yapping with Arch again. I don't know if Dev will be there, but we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Let's see. As for me, I probably just Warframe tomorrow on my channel, because Warframe had a new update. Chat, no spoilers, but the new Warframe that came out is very maternal. I loved it. What about you?
Chat will probably just be hanging around with Akko unless something else comes up. I'll also have my friend Royan on, so I know those of you who like Royan, he'll be around. And we probably do that Rabbit and Steel game because he really wants to play it.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming tonight. We deeply appreciate it. For the person that asked about Mizu's Twitter, Mizu doesn't have a Twitter. His Twitter has been banned because Twitter does not like him. But his roommate, who is just as cool as he is, does have a Twitter. Did you want to shout out your roommate's Twitter?
Yeah, sure. I will. We'll plug the roommate's Twitter in the chat again.
Your very good roommate's Twitter here.
My roommate is also currently doing a model reveal for their brand new model.
Yes. So if you does that mean it's mommy's? But yeah. We appreciate everybody coming out tonight. It's your first time here. I typically do an outro song. I pick something random that I think is funny that may or may not get claimed by YouTube. By the way, really quickly, Mizu, Lumi, we hit 500 subs.
Oh, hell yeah.
Thank you guys so much for that. We deeply appreciate it. At 500, we already have our watch hours, so we're probably going to enable monetization for people that want to send in supers if they want to, and whatever other random stuff. But we deeply appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing. You're the reason why we do this. We come on every single week so that we can talk about the silly, stupid stuff in the VTuber world, because there's a lot of it.
Ooh, this means wait, hold on. Does this mean we can enable memberships and we can start uploading fucking emotes?
I believe I'll have to check. I am not sure. Get back to me on that.
If we can, we will.
Yes, if we can, there will be emotes, chat. And there's plenty of emotes that we can already use. We're gonna have to make some that have all three of us, and then we're gonna have to make share some upload space because we get limited amounts in the beginning. But anyway, thank you guys so much for coming today. I'll be on my channel tomorrow. Lumi, are you gonna be on your channel tomorrow?
Yes.
Awesome. Mizu, you'll be with me tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. Chad, thank you so much. Have a fantastic day. And always remember to continue living and learning. Have a good one.
Did they say drop the sub? Drop your sub!
Yes, if you haven't yet, sub to the channel. Here.
Like, sub, hit that bell icon.
And turn it, just hit like on the stream. Sorry, I'm talking while I'm setting all this up. All right, bye, chat.
Night, everybody.